Good evening, and welcome back to the Demilitarized Zone. This is the one stream designed to help you feel better about engaging in hot-button topics with people you disagree with. Our goal here is to teach discourse survival tactics, not just farm gotchas and dunks. We try our best to cultivate meaningful, intelligent conversation where you have to stop and listen to the other person, even if it is just to find the flaws in what they are saying. So please attack the belief, not the believer. At least for tonight, please check your weapons at the door, take notes, act like grown-ups, and refrain from the blood sports and shit-slinging that have plagued our society for far too long. Also, here, the audience gets a say. So, there will be a link in the chat after each debate where you can vote for a winner. Please limber up those voting fingers because it is free, and let's exercise our democratic rights here to decide which side made the most compelling argument in each debate. Let's say 3 minutes is on the clock. Know Nothing Attorney, you have been here before, sir. You know how this game works. Start the clock when you start to talk. Give us your opening arguments.
All right. In light of the Supreme Court renewing Jim Crow on Wednesday, I think it's important that we take a look at discrimination and availability of housing in the housing market in America. The Fair Housing Act began by trying to address some of these discriminatory issues. And, had very poor results doing so. But the commission that pushed for the Fair Housing Act identified multiple factors that were causing unrest in the housing market. And one of the major factors was poor housing supply. Before we address anything else, no one can make any headway if that is still an issue. If we want to address discriminatory housing, we have to address the poor housing supply. So if we just look at some of the statistics, 33% of single-family home purchases in quarter 2 of 2025 were by institutional investors. A whole third of single-family homes were bought by institutional investors. Institutional investors own over a fifth of single-family rentals in cities like Atlanta and Jacksonville. As far as availability, for every 100 low-income Americans, there are only 35 affordable homes they then have to buy up. And 75% of low-income Americans are paying over 50% of their income on rent. And now, 10% of all new home builds in 2024 and 2025 were built to rent, cutting ownership completely out of the equation from the beginning. We have brand new industries popping up to cut people out of owning homes in America. Additionally, these institutional investors have proven themselves time and time again to evict tenants at a much higher rate. So America helped create this situation where an industry that didn't exist before 2012 is threatening to sweep the largest generator of generational wealth in the country. America, therefore, has the authority and the duty to fix that. So my proposal is this. For institutional investors with some threshold, say 25 or 50 homes in their inventory, you create a 5 to 7 year deadline, hard stop, where the government then will eminent domain at fair market value less a fee for keeping houses off the market. And during that 5 to 7 year window, these institutional investors have the opportunity to sell at a higher rate, therefore proving the value is above what the government would pay for it. This will drive discovery of true cost of the homes, true price, true value, and it will push homes back into the market, solving this issue that is threatening to cut home ownership out of the question for good.
All right. So we're now going to go ahead and go straight to that cross-examination ruckus. Again, like I said, the way this works is this is your time to use as you see fit. Poke holes, set up arguments. Even if you want, you can just fucking monologue. It's your time. So you control this time as you see fit. I'll start the clock when you start to talk.
Yeah. You said 33% of were institutional investors, and 1 out of 5. Is that right? 20% in some areas. That was recent home purchases, or is that what you're talking about?
That's the 1 out of 5 is single family rentals, like full scale in that local market. They currently own.
Currently owned.
Yes.
Okay.
The
All right.
more dangerous one, I think, is the 33% of new like incoming sales are being taken over by institutional investors,
Yeah,
and
I'd
it's
be interested
growing
to
every
see.
quarter. I
I'd
don't know
be
about
interested
every
to
quarter,
see.
but
Yeah, you're
Q1
fine.
over Q2 last year went from 30% to 33.
I'd be interested to see where you got that data, because that's not the data that I got. But we can discuss that as things go on. I am happy that you acknowledged that the thing with housing, the issue right now is actually around poor housing supply, and that seems to be one of the biggest drivers of prices going up right now. Not necessarily corporations. Um, so I want to understand your perspective on what you're trying to accomplish with this. What is the stated goal? Is it just to address the affordability crisis and accessible home ownership? Is that basically the gist?
The stated goal is to create an interrupter in the capture pipeline where the institutional investors are taking over all new opportunities to buy homes, giving
What's the
opportunities to buy
problem
homes
you're
back
trying to
to.
solve? Are you just trying to cut corporations out completely, or are you actually trying to make homes more affordable?
No, under this proposal, investors would still be able to get have a midterm investment rather than a long term investment. So over 5 to 7 years, they could turn a profit on these homes, but they
That's
can't
not what the
hoard
proposal
houses.
says. The proposal says eminent domain. So you're going to be seizing private property and redistributing it through the Fair
The
Housing
federal
Act.
government under this plan would be eminent domaining properties as the end stop, like the hard stop at the end of the time period. And those eminent domains would drive the motivation for the institutional investors to actually sell those homes at higher prices than the government would pay.
So is it not necessarily using eminent domain, but threatening eminent domain if they don't sell it?
I mean, that would assume that 100% of the properties would be sold by the investors. I doubt that would be possible, and the eminent domain would be a reality that was taking place to drive those sales.
Setting them up to fail, essentially. You're going to say, you got 5 to 7 years to sell this property, and if you don't, and we know you can't, we're going to seize your property and redistribute it.
Well, if you're not generating value, then why is it being kept off the market for Americans to buy?
Is a rental property not value? Is that not generating value for somebody?
It's generating value, but it is increasingly turning capital over to the institutional investors so that they can buy more houses out from under Americans who would be like new home owners, new families, first-time home buyers. No opportunities to buy homes from the beginning.
All right, so that's time. So we're going to go ahead and go over to 3 minutes on the clock for you now, Ruckus. This is your uninterrupted time to open, sir. Go ahead when you're ready.
Yeah, sure. With respect to the ceasefire, I think we probably will get to that here in a moment.
Fair.
But with regard to the institutional investors and these large corporations, I think it's important to point out, based on my own research, they only make up anywhere from 1 to 3% of single-family homes nationally, as far as ownership is concerned. And even in concentrated metro areas, they're still a minority share of the total housing stock that's available. You know, if the intention here was simply to address the growing affordability crisis and to increase home ownership, simply removing large corporate ownership from the equation will have little to no impact, even in the most impacted areas for corporate ownership. If we really wanted to address the issue, I think we should be looking at things that actually drive the inflated cost of homes. Those would be zoning and land use constraints, basic infrastructure, geography limits, actually the interest rates that actually determine mortgages, numerous administrative delays with regard to permitting and other sorts of red tape, and of course the material costs themselves. All of these rank higher in terms of impact to home pricing. To simplify it, the issue of housing affordability isn't the issue of corporations owning residential properties. It's a supply chain problem, and more specifically, a lack of housing availability, whose primary causes are more closely related to government intervention in the market, not too dissimilar to what you're advocating here. But this isn't just a theory either. This has been demonstrated time and time again. One clear example of this current situation is between San Francisco and Houston. It's currently estimated that the median home in Houston and San Francisco are 80,000 and 150,000 respectively. That's the median income. The estimated income needed to afford a home in those areas is 90,000 and 400,000 respectively. To clarify what I just said, that's a gap in Houston of around $10,000 off the median income and a gap of around $250,000 in San Francisco. In Houston, the gap is somewhat manageable, but in San Francisco, you're basically screwed. And the key difference here is the zoning regulations and the ability to build more houses. In Houston, you can pretty much build wherever you want, whatever you want. In San Francisco, you're heavily restricted on what you can build, where you can build, all of the permitting and environmental reviews and everything else that San Francisco imposes on their builders. So where do corporations fit in here? Well, that's actually the best part of this example. The estimations that I was able to find said that corporate institutional investments were somewhere between 0.5 and 2% in San Francisco, whereas in Houston, they're closer to 2 to 4%. So even in an area where you have almost double the corporate representation that you're looking to target with this sort of action, home prices are significantly more affordable, and even after accounting for income and other disparities. So all that's to say nothing about the implementation of this program, who would qualify, what just compensation might look like, or what other political hoops we might have to jump through before this solution is actually implemented. I agree with the intention. Housing is quickly becoming more and more unaffordable, but the solution here isn't to create dangerous precedents or through forcible seizures on private property and political redistribution of currently existing assets. The real solution here is to allow more houses to be built, thus increasing supply and meeting demand so that prices can come down more quickly and naturally. Bottom line, if you want cheaper housing, build more houses. Don't confiscate them. Thank you.
All right. As I'm sure you noticed there, whenever you go past on the time, I'm going to let you finish your thought. I'm not going to talk across you unless you go for a really long time. But the judges do generally pay attention to who does and does not stay on time because it is kind of part of the deal. But again, no criticisms. All right. So going back to this now, attorney, this is your turn. 3 minutes on the clock for cross-examination. Use it as you see fit, sir.
All right, I think we can settle the ceasefire with the intent of the statistic with this question. Do you disagree that a larger and larger share of home sales each year are being done by, or the purchases are being made by institutional investors?
I don't disagree that it's increasing. I think it's a profitable investment, and people are finding that out. I just disagree with the scale or the effective of it.
And do you see any effective means in place to limit the number of purchases they make?
I don't see why we need to limit the number of purchases that they make.
And is there anything in place that would incentivize them to, rather than rent properties that they no longer want to hold for investment, to sell those to American home buyers?
I think they're going to do whatever the market dictates. If people are willing to rent houses and they're willing to do it at a price that these companies can make a profit, they're just going to keep doing it. If people suddenly have more money to spend, or building houses becomes more affordable, it's already more desirable that people want to own houses. I'll grant you that, but they just can't afford them, and there's other reasons why they can't afford them. So right now, they're providing that solution in the market by providing the rental houses. If we can bring down the cost of those houses, maybe there'd be more people who are not only willing but eligible to buy those houses. I think that's where you solve the problem. And once you create that market incentive and there's actually viable purchasers there, that'll solve that problem.
And do you think renting doesn't generate generational wealth, right?
Renting doesn't generate generational wealth? No, but I don't know. Just because you own a house doesn't mean you're wealthy either.
No, but in most cases, property increases in value over time, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I would definitely grant you that people who own and pay off their house or definitely have more to pass on to their children than people who rent. But there's also other benefits to renting that you don't get with home ownership. And there's a lot more risks with owning a home than there is from renting a home.
Sure. But in the case of if you're renting a home, who gets the benefit of the accretion in wealth over time?
The person who owns the home, but the tenant also gets many other benefits too. They're more mobile. They don't have to worry about maintenance costs, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. And then the accretion of value over time would make that homeowner, the landlord, more likely to be able to afford additional homes, correct?
Sure. Yeah, and you can find a rental
So for
place
every time
and
that we're increasing the supply of homes, these institutional investors are going to be buying more and more of the additional supply we're adding, right?
true, but you're also gonna be selling more and more homes to individual home buyers. They make up a majority of the market right now, and there's no reason to think that they won't continue to do so.
And do you think we need to build additional homes to make up for the additional homes that the institutional sellers are buying to allow more homeowners to buy them?
Yeah, we have a massive housing shortage right now. We need to build as many homes as possible.
Go ahead and take that question straight into the next part. We're just going to go ahead and leave the 10 minutes on the clock. Start it up when you guys are ready. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Well, I think I
keep
made it
going.
clear by my questions that like my greater concern, right? Like I do hope to address pricing, how expensive
Mhm.
homes are, how affordable they are, but just the availability of homes for homeowners to buy when they want to buy them is becoming increasingly threatened over time.
Yeah, I think you're saying the same thing there. It's the supply of homes that's the real issue. It's not these or these companies owning the homes. There's just
Right.
not enough homes around.
And
So I think
so
we're on
for
the
each
same
of your
page there.
solutions to supply, I wouldn't disagree with them, but I also think the increasing hoarding of homes by these institutional investors is a increasing threat over time. And I think that like this industry didn't even exist before 2012, before Blackstone like got a like what was it $1 billion loan from the federal government.
Yeah,
Um,
they
and
shouldn't be subsidizing builders. I agree with you.
yeah, I mean, but now it's too late. We now have an industry where these
Mhm.
investors are owning greater and greater shares of the new homes being sold. Um,
Yeah, I just don't see how the use of eminent domain or threatening the use of eminent domain will increase the supply of housing. That's the part where I think we have a disconnect.
so if the government, what? Where's my statistic here? We got
Mhm.
3.3 million, I'll just say 3 million homes approximately that are being kept off the market, um, just
Kept off the
warehoused
market in
by.
what way? They're just sitting there, or are people renting them?
I mean, just sitting there is, I think, 14 million homes.
You
Doing
said
three
three
is the
million.
estimated ones that are completely vacant,
Mhm. I
vacant and
wonder why they're
unused.
sitting there. I'd like to know why they're sitting there. Is it because they can't find anybody to rent them, or are they just not interested in renting them
Uh, as I understand it, in many cases they're holding them for value.
so
But
that they can sell them, which is what you want them to
yeah,
do anyway?
eventually. But
Yeah.
currently they're a long-term financial asset, which is not what homes are intended to be.
Mhm. What you just said is for building generational wealth. How is it not for a long-term wealth building asset?
Uh, Sorry, corporate financial asset, a long-term corporate asset.
Why is it not it's a commodity just like anything else. Why wouldn't that be
Is it
allowed?
though? I don't people
Yes.
need homes to live? They don't.
There's tons of homeless people in California that disagree with you. No, you definitely want
I
a
mean,
home to
they
live
have
in.
homes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They're just
Um,
unhoused.
Yeah. Now, everybody wants a home, and I agree with that. I just think that the solution here, the easier solution here, is just to make building homes more affordable. Like I use California. There was an example recently. I can't remember which famous rock star it was. I'm not a pop culture guy, but there was one of these guys went to California and decided he was going to build a bunch of tiny homes for all the homeless people in California, and that was shut down by the California government because they required them to have all these extra amenities. So this uh, charitable project that he was putting together to build all these tiny homes, he had to turn away from it because they were saying things like, oh, well, it's got to have, AC, it's got to have a parking spot, it's got to have a washer and dryer, it's got to have this, that, the other thing, all these regulations and red tape that came along with it that basically destroyed the program. So you have instances like that where people are trying to help out as best they can, come up with these affordable housing solutions. And then that's a whole nother subject as well as all of the quote unquote affordable housing projects that all these different localities put together have all these extra restrictions and things you have to do and things you can't do that just put more limitations and incur more costs on the builders that make housing more expensive. And that's why you get people pushed into rental agreements, even though they really don't want them. They really want to own a house. They can't own a house because the cost of building a
I don't,
house is so prohibitive.
I don't see how we get away from making it more affordable, makes it just more easy to buy for institutional investors. And if there's a family of three first-time home
Mhm.
buyers versus an institutional investor, if they're going in on the same house against each other, I know which one's going to win. It doesn't matter how
Not
affordable the house is
necessarily.
in that case.
Not necessarily, because I don't know.
Not necessarily, but and in how many cases out of how many?
I mean, this house that I'm in right now, I won in a bidding war with 7 different people, and one of them was a developer that wanted to buy this land, bulldoze the house, and build a trailer park on it. So you can win it. And there's
No,
really
it's
it
possible
comes
to win it, but in how many cases do like families have the like capital power that an institutional investor has?
It depends. I mean, it really depends on the market and the situation. I would argue that it's probably happens a lot less than you think it does. Because the way you're portraying it, it seems like it would just like every time a corporation wants to get involved, the homeowner or the single family just loses. And I don't think that's the case, because you have market forces that dictate what the house is worth. If you want to buy a house for an investment property, there's higher regulations and requirements. If you're a first time home buyer, you've only got to put down 3.5%. If you're a corporation or if you're an individual that wants to buy a second home for investing, you have to put down 20%. I know, because this is what I used to do.
Well,
It costs a lot more
to
money to
clarify,
get involved.
it's not necessarily about who wins and who loses in each case, but it's about who has the institutional purchasing power that they need at any one time. Like if an institutional
Sure.
investor loses, it's not because they don't have the resources available to buy the home. In most cases, these have a ton of like weight behind their punches, when it comes to the amount that they could invest in a home if they chose to.
Yeah,
Now,
but
as
they're not
far as
going to,
how
because the
we make
market's
homes
gonna dictate that
available with
price. Yeah.
what's that?
Is they're not going to, because the market's gonna dictate that price. If I'm gonna buy a house for an investment purpose and I intend to rent that house out, or even if I wanna hold it for a long period of time, there is a limit to how much money I'm gonna spend on that house. Now, a family looking at that house might be looking at it as a forever home, not necessarily an investment where spreadsheets and numbers and all this, it really matter too much. The question is, can they afford it, and will they be able to afford it long enough to pay it off and raise their family there? Some of those things have more value than an investor might look at it and say, oh, if I buy this house, it's going to have X, Y, Z in cost, and I
I
need to
think we're
make
just
this much
skirting around
margin.
the fact that if an
Okay.
institutional investor wants the home, in most
Yeah.
cases, they will get it if they want it.
If they want it bad enough, I agree with you. They have
Yeah,
more money.
if a family wants it bad enough, what are they fucking gonna do?
Get a good
As
loan.
far as making
I don't
homes
know.
available with my plan, as you asked,
Mhm.
once the government purchases these properties, if they are not sold on the market at a higher price, which is apparently the home's actual value,
Mhm.
then the government could potentially sell them to community land trusts that can then manage those properties locally, so that they are not in the hands of the federal government. The federal government will not be managing these properties; they will just be um, earning what they have spent.
Yeah, there's a whole list of things with that we just don't have time to get into. I think it's going to face a lot of legal challenges, and it's going to have to jump through a lot of hoops, and deciding, like I said, who's qualified, who gets access to it, who
Right, but the
doesn't.
question is should, not what are the legal
No, and
challenges here?
my answer is should not.
Okay, right, but
I
when you
think,
say
yeah,
legal
yeah.
challenges,
Mhm.
America should do FDR's economic Bill of Rights, and in that case, we would have a lot of punching power when it came to like passing laws to make homes more affordable and manage the sale of those homes.
My counter to that is, if you want to make homes more affordable, you need to get government out of the way and let people who own property do what they want to do with it and build what they want to build on it, and the market will provide. That's my
Well, I mean, as
solution
far
there.
as making it I mean, we're not making it like more like we're not making it less affordable by getting the government involved because they have a floor, or like I guess the floor is the investor's floor. It's the ceiling
Do
for
you
the federal
think
government, which would be FMV minus like you know some fee on top of it.
Let me ask you this. If the government were to utilize eminent domain in the way you're talking about for a new Fair Housing Act, do you think that would increase or decrease the supply of housing, future supply of housing?
The future supply of housing, well, I think it would over the long term increase
The rate,
the.
I guess. Yeah.
Well, it depends. Like I mentioned, from
What I'm asking
24
you
to
is, do you,
25,
yeah,
10% of the new built homes were built to rent. So how much more
built
is
by
that going
who?
to increase?
Built by
They're
who?
built by institutional investors to
Do you
rent.
think those institutional investors will be incentivized to build those houses if they know that the government is going to seize them 5 or 7 years down the road?
No, definitely not rental properties. But
So you're talking
like
about
the point is to remove this as a
you're talking
long-term
about eliminating
corporate
it.
asset to begin with. It should never have been that.
We agree that the issue is the supply of housing, and what you just said is that you expect that these institutional investors are providing for 10% of the new rental homes that are being built, and they will be disincentivized from doing that in the future moving forward if we threaten to use eminent domain on them should they build them. So I don't see
How did we
how you're going to
survive in
make up
2005? It's a mystery.
one day at a time.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
this didn't. This isn't a critical mass where everything fails if we get rid of it, because it didn't exist before the 2008 financial crisis. Like, this is new and
Well,
we don't
just in
need
the
it, and
same way,
it's damaging us.
I don't know that we don't need it. I think it should be allowed, and if it weren't needed or it weren't valuable, then people wouldn't do it.
So we're talking about like institutional investors, right? We're talking about
Yeah,
accumulating
yeah.
capital that is increasing over time, so as they can buy more houses, they can buy a greater share of the market. How long is it going to be before they are the majority share of the houses bought every
They,
year? At that point, how much control do they have over how much you have to pay in rent? Like,
mhm.
if they own 33, if one company owns 33% of the houses in the local area for rent, then they have a massive amount of rent control. So I don't know how this stays affordable at all.
I don't know that if the issue is time preference now, I don't know how creating like this is the legal trouble that I was talking about before. Like they're going to run into questions of if this is even constitutional to seize private property from one group to redistribute it to another. That's going to create a whole bunch of hurdles, and then you have all of the political hurdles on the
I mean,
local
that's
level
already a
about
thing.
who's. I know
That's
it's already a
law.
thing, but that's my point though. Is what I'm talking about is removing the barriers to entry, and you're talking about increasing them. And if we're going to talk about time preference and which one is going to have a greater effect more quickly, I think
Wait,
removing
you're
the
talking about
barriers is
lowering
obviously going to
whose barriers to entry? Whose barriers to entry are we talking about?
builders building new homes.
Right, and then the people who get to buy that are who? You're totally
If there's
cutting
an
out the
abundant,
part where somebody has to buy the home.
I'm not cutting it out at all. I'm saying that if there's a greater supply of homes available, then the price will come down. Because right now the issue is scarcity. There's not enough homes to go around, so people are
For the
bidding up the
buyer, what about
prices
the
as much as they
renter?
can. What about the renter? There's going to be more
Well,
houses. You can rent more houses.
when the price goes down and the institutional investor, the landlord, buys the cheaper home, they then
Yeah.
soak up all of the property is more and more and more, and then they get to
If
increase
they're
the rent because they have control of the housing market. So then
they get to
the renter
increase the
starts
rent.
paying more.
They get to increase the rent as far as the market will bear. Do you think that if there are more houses available to rent, then that's suddenly going to make prices go higher somehow?
Sorry?
If you have a situation in a city, right? The current situation right now, there's few homes available and they're owned by these corporations. There's tons of people that want to rent those homes. The prices are elevated. Do you think in a situation where we have more houses available to rent, that those prices are somehow going to go higher or lower or stay the same?
I I think when the number of houses is in fewer hands, you run the risk of prices going
It
higher.
doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter who's holding the houses. It matters how many houses are available, and then people will the market will set the rate for what that house is worth. If you have tons of houses available and few people to rent them, the prices are going to be really low to attract those few people that want to move into those houses. If you have
That
fewer
requires a
homes
robust,
and
healthy
tons of
market with
people,
people on both sides. It requires
yeah,
supply and demand,
welcome
and
to
if
America.
yeah, but if you have a bunch of demand and you have
Uh-huh.
only a few people who are providing the supply, that
Mhm.
is a risk to the
I
demanders.
agree with you. I agree with you. We should open up the number of suppliers. We should make it easier. This is what I was talking about, lowering the barriers to entry to build more houses.
Which are just gonna get bought by the institutional investors. You keep adding
Maybe
more houses,
you would build
they'll
more
just keep buying
houses.
more as long as it's, like, profitable to do so.
Yeah, and there's no problem with that. The more houses that are on the market, the cheaper the rents and mortgages will be.
I mean, I think there's a massive problem with Americans not generating generational wealth.
I
Like,
agree with you.
that was what the backbone of the country was built on the GI Bill, and the mortgages that were given out, I would take a moment to pause and say, in a very Jim Crow way, but the mortgages that were given out, like, generated massive generational wealth from the 1940s on.
I agree with you that creating generational wealth is an issue right now. I just think that we disagree on what's creating that problem, and maybe we'll end up on separate sides of the third debate tonight. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think I got the stuff that I wanted out. I don't know if there was another.
Yeah, I'm good to go to
clarified
closing.
question you had. Yeah, all right.
In your arguments, Know Nothing, you are saying that eminent domain would require the government to pay a fair market price for the homes that they are taking from the corporations. My question would be, you also, I believe you proposed, and if I'm putting words in your mouth, I apologize, please correct me, but I believe you proposed that the mandate would require for the corporation to offer them up for sale in the open market first, and if they don't sell, then the government will purchase them. That was what you were saying, correct? That was your framing?
Yes,
All right, cool.
I would say that helps prove the value of the home.
All right. So my question to you then is, if all of this happens and those houses don't sell, because for whatever reason, the people can't buy them, people don't want them, et cetera, what does the government then do with all of these houses that they bought at fair market value but are not being sold? And also, how do you propose the government funds that investment? Because it would at least temporarily be an investment until those houses sold or sell. Go ahead and start when you're ready.
Well, as far as getting like an initial like cash flow to buy some of these houses, I mean, I think the cost of this would far be exceeded by the tax cuts done by the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and I think reversing some of that would generate more revenue that could be used to purchase these homes, and then a lot of it would be self-funding, and then the federal government could just keep dropping the price and then eating the cost if they have to. But generally, I'd imagine it would be joint projects between the federal government and local nonprofit entities like community land trusts to get those homes back in the hands of family purchasers, occupiers.
All right, good stuff. Now we're going to go to my judges. Average debate enjoyer. We're going to go from left to right as much as possible. Do you have a question ready for Know Nothing? All right, go ahead and shoot it at him, buddy.
All right, so I'm going to also ask a couple quick clarifications to recap some things before I hit you with my question. Your argument here seems to be that corporations are building, you said 20% of the new houses that were built were not intended to be sold, but rented or used for investment, right?
10% in 24 to 25.
And I think you did give some anecdotes about cities having like a 20% density, but generally you guys agreed that corporations only own about 1 to 3 of the percent of the houses on the entire housing market, right?
Yeah, I agree. Of the existing stock, they own very little.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I got those two things right before I answer my question. So my question for you seems like a lot of your argument is punishing people. When we see punishments, new taxes, and things of that nature, it disincentivizes things. So this small group is building 3% is building 20% of the homes, massively bigger of a per capita for home building. So why not encourage first-time home buyers with incentives, like increase the first-time home buyer incentives we already have, instead of punishing the people building significantly more homes? Don't you think you get more homes that way?
Well, I think that takes the opportunities out of people, out of the hands of people who are not first-time home buyers. Over many decades, it is not just first-time home buyers that are buying homes. People should have the opportunities to move, own multiple properties, etc. I'm not discounting the possibility that people would own multiple properties. I'm talking about large-scale investors, people with maybe a threshold of like 25 or 50 or even more, because it's like Blackstone has 350,000 properties. Get me back on track with the rest of your question. I want to answer it. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Seems like you're punishing people, disincentivizing from building new homes. You're going after a group that's building higher per capita in homes significantly from their population size. So wouldn't increasing first-time home buyer incentives build that generational wealth you're talking about in a better way while more homes are still being built?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm definitely in favor of incentivizing first-time home buying, but I also don't think this is a punishment. It is making sure that the home is being assessed at its actual value, so it's being sold, it's actually being circulated, it's in circulation. And I wouldn't even be opposed to incentivizing investment in these midterm assets rather than as long-term assets that are being held. They just need to go back into the hands of American like small investors or home buyers.
Right. Now, Jesus, it's on you, sir. Do you have a question ready for Know Nothing?
Yeah. So I actually, it's more of just, can you lay out your thesis in, a concise way of how having more government in this situation creates more affordable housing?
I mean, I would actually, well, again, my focus is more on housing supply than it is on affordable housing. I think that will eventually come as part of the solution down the line, but I think you got to address the supply problem, because if it keeps getting bought up, then the Americans aren't ones generating the wealth. It's just these investors. But I would also say that this isn't like large continued involvement of the government. They are just coming in as a interruption of the capture pipeline. They are taking it from these investors that tend to warehouse these properties, and then preferably putting it back in like local hands that are trying to get those houses to the people that they know, their local communities, through community land trusts.
Fair enough.
All right.
Um,
Did he answered your question, right? All right, cool. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and kick this over to you, Mr. Ruckus. Your turn.
Yeah, let's just talk. Yeah.
If creating new houses lowers the cost, but the motivation for building the new houses is the profitability to the corporations, why would the corporations continue building new houses? There you go.
They'll do it as long as it makes sense in the market, as long as it makes, as long as they can make a profit or whatever margin they're looking for in it. The goal here with this intended proposal is to make it more affordable for single families or families to own single family homes. That's the intended goal here. So by building more houses, we're lowering the cost of building those houses, or we're lowering the cost of houses. And so I think like that's where you're going to find your solution. Basically what you're asking me is, at what point is there market saturation and it's no longer profitable to build these houses and rent them out? I can't answer that question. The market will answer that question. But right now we have a severe deficiency in the number of houses available. So the more people we can get building houses, the easier we can make it to build houses. I think that's where we're going to find the solution. Whenever the institutions decide that there's enough houses on the market and they don't need to build anymore, then we don't have this problem and it doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. Average debate enjoyer, your turn. Please, a question for Mr. Ruckus.
Okay, so your main argument that you've made generally, well, two. You've got an economic argument and you've got the argument I'm going to address with my question. So the argument I'm going to address with my question is the argument about regulations, the argument about housing costing more in X. I think you used San Francisco and somewhere in Ohio or Cleveland, if I'm not mistaken. Houston, my bad. Oh yeah, Houston. Yeah, that's a good example. City is close to me. So yeah, you compared these two. So I kind of want to ask you a question about these regulations. Generally, under the 10th Amendment, these local things are settled at the state and local level, and that's basically up to the will of the voters. So, Would you personally want a prison built next to your child's school?
Would I personally want a prison built next to my child's school? No. But I would go argue that locally. That's not a problem for the federal government to just.
That's what the zoning laws are that you're saying drive up the cost. So that's my point. Is, do you see the value in these zoning laws? That was more of the meme of the question. The actual question is, do you see the value in these zoning laws? Understand why they are there, and are you kind of representing them poorly right now? Is my question.
Reset the timer for you. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. Do I see the value in zoning laws? From the local perspective, yeah. I mean, if, like you said, if somebody doesn't want to build a prison next to a school and the local community is against that for some reason, then they can go ahead and do that. The issue I have with zoning regulation is in the example with San Francisco and Houston. One of the zoning regulations that comes into play there is verticality and density. So they don't want you to build houses too close together. They don't want you to build houses too tall and all of those sorts of things. That's the problem in San Francisco. In Houston, it's not so much an issue.
All right, mind melt.
Let's
No,
go.
so the question is, why wouldn't more houses, if it's a supply issue, just mean more institutional investors?
I don't know that it wouldn't mean more institutional investors. I don't see the institutional investors as an inherent evil. I think they're providing a market service right now. They're providing houses for people to rent and in some cases houses for people to buy. Like an anecdotal example that I'll use is the last house that I lived in was a build to rent community, but a lot of the houses were for sale as well. So it was a mixture. There were some people that were renting and some people that owned the houses, but the houses themselves were built by an institutional I just lost the word for it, a corporate investor, if you will. Somebody financed that whole thing with the intention of renting and selling those houses. It wasn't individuals doing it. It was a large corporation that built this suburb community. So I don't really see that as a negative. This whole, not you particularly or anyone in particular, but this whole conversation seems to be like corporations owning houses is bad. I know that people want to own houses individually, but I don't see it as a net negative that corporations own houses. I see it as a net positive. They're providing a service into the market and giving people places to live.
All right. So we actually got a question coming in from the chat, and it doesn't specify who this question is directed at, so I'm going to give both of y'all the chance to answer it, although I'm pretty sure I know what Know Nothing's answer is going to be on this. So I'm going to ask the question again. Should eminent domain be used on houses owned by foreign actors controlling our markets? So specifically, again, you think it should be all corporations, but do you think that we should start with or focus on foreign investments and foreign corporations?
No, I don't see any particular reason to do so. I mean, if we're talking about specific foreign actors, then maybe, but just foreign actors in general, no.
Okay. And the same question is going to go over to you now, Ruckus. Would you agree with the idea? I know you're against general eminent domain usage for this purpose, but if it was specifically targeting foreign corporations and outside entities, would you then support it?
No, I'm a free market guy. I think anybody that wants to participate should be allowed to. Yeah, it's fine.
All right. Cheers. All right. Well, then in that case, we're going to go ahead and put 3 minutes on the clock for each of you again. This is your opportunity to close. Chatters, just remember that I'm going to be, after their closings, I'm going to be putting that link in, so get your voting fingers ready. Know Nothing, 3 minutes is going on the clock for your closing first, sir. Go ahead and start the clock whenever you start to talk.
All right, first off, I just want to make it clear that we're talking about a long-term solution for a long-term problem. And if we're talking about affordability, there are definitely other solutions that make more of an imminent impact to impact to affordability. But we're talking about if this doesn't get implemented now, if we don't do something now to address these institutional investors that are buying up all these homes, that is going to pose a large cost problem for Americans in the future. And then we'll be going, why didn't we head this off in the first place? It's not something that should have ever started, and we should get rid of it now. As far as ending the incentive to buy homes, I don't see a problem. I don't see like anything preventing us from decoupling the incentive to build homes and the incentive to hold homes or to warehouse homes. You can incentivize building homes and still have the possibility of like them being able to only turn a profit on it for 5 to 7 years before they have to remove it from their inventory. And then just on the zoning point, I think we're running into a bit of a problem here. If we're going to loosen zoning laws and we're only going to be solving the problem with like, not that this was Ruckus's particular solution, but further incentivizing first-time home buyers. Well, if there's no incentive to buy a second or third home, well, suddenly you find yourself in a lot of problems when the zoning laws are loosened and you want to move. So you're going to start running into problems that are created by the solutions. But in general, we are running into we're seeing an accelerating problem, and it is accelerating at a scary rate. when it comes to whether or not it's a problem for corporations to be owning these homes, it's a matter of who's generating the wealth in America. Do we want our families to be generating wealth so that more Americans have more opportunities and they bring a greater benefit to America as a whole? Or do we want that wealth to be generated by institutional investors? That's where it's a problem for institutional investors to be the ones holding all the value here. But in general, I think there are multiple ways that this could be done to be an effective solution and keep the federal government's hands off of it to the greatest degree possible. All they have to do is interrupt the permanent or long-term holding of properties out of the hands of people who would be buying them. And then you can get them back into local communities, and it's largely small cost. It may be a large startup cost, but after that, it'll be just generating its own revenue for further purchases. So I think it's a obvious solution. Thank you.
All right. Going to go ahead and go over to you now. Same 3 minutes is on the clock, Mr. Ruckus. 3 minutes to close. Go ahead and put a cherry on top, sir.
At the end of this debate, the question is not whether housing affordability is a problem. I think we both agree that it clearly is. The question is whether or not the plan proposed actually solves it in a way that's effective and sustainable. My opponent asks us to accept a policy that fundamentally expands government power to seize private property from corporate owners under eminent domain. Under the Fifth Amendment, I think this is going to face significant challenges, and where it was originally intended that property can only be taken for legitimate public use with just compensation. This is not necessarily for public use. It's more about redistributing from people who we don't think should own it to people who we prefer would own it. The burden is not just legality, but whether or not it actually solves the problem of the shortage of housing supply, or it merely reshuffles ownership while creating new legal and economic uncertainty. The evidence shows that housing scarcity is driven primarily by zoning restrictions, permitting delays, and constrained supply, not simply who owns the housing stock. So removing corporate ownership does not automatically produce more housing. In fact, disrupting the investment capital often reduces new construction, slows development, and ultimately will worsen affordability. Even if we agree and the intent is fairness, good intentions do not always equal good outcomes. The policy must be judged on the results and not the rhetoric. And here, the result is clear. This plan does not address the root cause of the crisis. And if anything, it risks making the crisis a lot worse. For those reasons, I'm against it.
All right. Good stuff. All right, gentlemen. So, as I have said a couple of times, I'm going to go ahead and drop a link here into the chat. It should go across to all of the shared chats. Everybody who is in the Discord channel, if you look into the side chat of the Discord, for those of you who are over there on YouTube as well, I put the link to the poll, so you guys can go ahead and put that into your chatters as well. And I'm going to also go ahead and drop it over here into my Kick and my YouTube stream. Anybody who ever wants to show me how it is to make all of those chats go across and talk to each other, please fucking let me know, because that would be awesome. With that said, while you guys are voting, I'm going to kick this over to the judges. So one more time, Tyler, the average debate enjoyer, I'm going to go ahead and ask for your judgment first, if you are ready, sir. Where did you land on this? Let us know.
All right, so both openings, closings, and cross were all fine. I think Ruckus took a slight W in this because he's more concise. Ruckus, you're very good at building your stepping stones. You started A. I always know where you're going from A to B to C and Y. Whereas attorney, your argument was kind of like X thing is happening and we need to do Y, a very extreme thing, because it'll work. And I don't really see the connection. It just seems like you're jumping to the conclusion you want. So the debate flow, attorney, when he was asking you questions, not a lot of times, but a couple of times, I didn't get a concise answer. And I will get into that because I fucked up my question for Tim pretty hard. So, attorney, when I asked you a question, the first answer you gave me kind of shifted the goalpost from generational wealth and just getting people that needed a home to, well, maybe they want a second home. It kind of really didn't hit for me. But then your second answer, when you let me re-clarify my question, I liked a bit more. Tim, I fucked your question up, and I wasn't getting worked up at you. I was getting worked up at me because as soon as it left my mouth and you started answering, I'm like, fuck, and I asked it the wrong way. And so I was yelling at myself there. Even if you got a 0, though, it's an average on that part, and your answer wasn't bad. You held your own, so I had to just accept the question I asked instead of the question I wanted. Attorney, I think your affirmative have 2 major claims. One, corporates are a growing threat. I never got the proof of that. I think you needed to take this ideological argument and bring some practical examples. of other corporations in the past that have used their powers to like take over these sectors in a nefarious way and hurt the actual consumer. And it stayed ideological. It never felt grounded to me. Whereas he didn't really address that argument as much. He went to your second argument. You're saying we need to strip people of their private property that did nothing wrong because it'll work. And I think his economic arguments almost at every single level just kind of beat you there, showing you this is more practical of a solution. This is more practical of a solution here. And we know it works, and you don't have to strip people's like private property from them. So I just never got that reason for you why we need to do eminent domain is the thing, and his arguments just kept bashing you over and over. And it's a really basic, common argument: just build more homes. So I just think you need to work on making your arguments more followable and relatable to the person with good examples, and you would have probably held your own a lot better here.
So the final score there?
3-7, I'm sorry.
3-7 for the Neg. All right. So once again, everybody out there in chat, I'm going to drop this link one more time for you guys. Please click that and vote. It costs you nothing. And it's especially important if the judges disagree on how they land. With that said, IndianJesus, where did you land on this and why?
So this was actually, for my first judging, I thought a good topic for me because I had, my own ideas about it, but never really dug in too deeply. And so I started more personally on the side of Ruckus. And so I was looking for Know Nothing to give me reasons to doubt that. And like Tyler very eloquently said, there was, the way that Ruckus draws the argument. Beautifully said. I couldn't have said it better myself. And I agree that it was a little bit kind of all over the place. I was looking to try to have a better understanding of what your entire position was, but I left with a lot more questions than answers. Whereas I understand Rux's position really well. I was gonna go 3-7, but with your closing Know Nothing, I gave you one more point, and 4-6. Ruckus takes the win.
All right, so it does sound like it's going to go to Ruckus one way or the other. Just to be clear, just like I'm not allowing the debaters or the judges to debate the debaters, I'm also not allowed to debate the judges. I'm simply going to clarify to AverageDebateEnjoyer that this would not be stripping corporations of private property since they're not people and they don't have private property. But that's neither here nor there. So it looks like
another debate.
It looks like we do actually have a winner here. Know Nothing, regardless of what the judges say, that was an absolutely great job. This is only your second time doing a debate, so like I said, that cannot be overlooked. Ruckus, great fucking job. I am still going to look to the chatters and see where the audience landed on this, because even though it doesn't actually matter for the win, it does matter for the scoring, because we do keep track of this for ranking purposes so that I can make sure that I'm scheduling debates between people who are roughly skill matched. So with that said, I'm going to give it a
good game.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So I'm going to give this just a couple seconds left. Anybody who wants to lock in that last minute vote, now would be the time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the results are in with an overwhelming win for Ruckus. That is a goddamn. That is an 8-2 victory from the chat. So 80 to 20%. So yeah, that is a unanimous decision. Know Nothing. I agree with you on the prompt. I agree with you on the principle. But it looks like the judges in the audience did not feel that you brought your best game tonight. So. The United States has lost the trust of the international community. Game Boy is on the Aff. Emmett here is on the negative. We're going to put 3 minutes on the clock for you first, Game Boy. As you know, sir, I will start the clock when you start to talk. So let's hear it.
Give me a second.
Yep. I'll give you 3 of them.
1, 2, 3. Okay. 1,000 thoughts. Thousands. The prompt says that America has lost the trust of the international community. This does not imply, okay, we don't have any trust. No one trusts us. We're little scaredy cats. We're not going to get anything. It means that just purely we have lost it. Our current administration has not provided any reason to maintain the current trust we've had over the past, I don't know, few decades. I mean, the international community more broadly is anyone that we have had alliance or trade with, I would say. It doesn't really matter who we didn't lose trust from. I think NATO is a very important indicator of how we stand with our fellow allies. And there have been several quotes from those within NATO or those in power at NATO that strongly reflect how they may be wanting to take a direction further away from reliance on the United States and continue to bring further independence away from U.S. dealings, viewing them as a negative force within NATO. General Richard Sheriff said the U.S. represents a greater threat to NATO than Russia, meaning that many people within NATO are more likely to collaborate with Russia or China, like Canada has done in the past, making trade agreements with China in order to, let me find the exact quote, bring on a new world order within Canada. I don't think you realize how crazy that is. We are, and to say this lightly, the police of the world, as you might want to say. But even the people who rely on us for the guns, the nuclear energy, the bam, bam, boom, boom, don't trust us anymore. They don't trust us financially, economically, because France, in the past year, 2 years, has pulled out gold. Oh, fuck. Never mind. Never mind. That's the end of my opening.
Oh, okay. Weird, but okay. So we're going to go ahead and put 3 minutes on the clock, Emmett.
It's a broader idea. You don't
Yep.
see the vision.
No, that's fine. 3 minutes is on the clock, Emmett. Question him as you see fit, sir.
You said that that they lost trust in us, right? That they are turning to other people. How many of them are asking for China or Russia to put up the militaries in the sea so that all trade lanes, remain open?
Can you say that again? I couldn't quite
Yeah.
understand what
Have you
said.
ever heard? Have you heard of the Canada or the EU to say, "Hey, Russia, could you please go up with your whole military force and be the police in the sea so that the Somali pirates will not destroy our ships"?
Did you know that they have been calling on Canada into the EU, not the EU, but into Europe to provide military protection rather than the US? Would that not
Do you
be
have any
them calling
evidence
on
of
other
that?
forces?
We can call a we can call a ceasefire if you have any article of it.
Yeah, I
do you have a link? Yeah, go ahead and throw it into the Discord chat and
Yeah.
we'll pull it up real quick.
Nice.
Do you mind if it's a YouTube video?
I would
I have,
rather,
like,
yeah,
others.
I can't really pull up videos, so
Yeah,
I would rather just any sort of cited
yeah, I
source.
do mine.
So,
Okay.
Is it from
Hold on.
Hassan? Just
Let me
asking
make
for
sure
a
this is the
friend.
right article.
Yep.
Yeah. Fuck. Okay. Let me find something else because I have one that's talking about
it's fine. Clock stopped. The clock stopped. Do what you got to do.
collaboration, but it is a. All right.
I'll tell you what is the claim? Because I can look as well at the same time.
The claim is the international community is looking for either Russia or China to put
It was
military
specifically
assets.
the EU. The EU is doing it.
No, but he was talking about the superpowers, Russia.
I misspoke. I meant
and
Europe
they were
more
trying
broadly.
they were trying to get him. So I was asking about
More
them
specifically,
directly.
European nations within NATO are calling on Canada for military protection within their countries.
Did you have that link?
I have a YouTube video, but it's not good enough.
Nope.
So I'm looking for articles.
I'm looking for
Okay.
an article. I can't find anything like that.
All right.
It might have been. Well, what you're claiming is somebody said it. So if there's some people in NATO that have said that, then that's all we got to prove. It's a pretty low bar, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
it would be a government. It would be the government, wouldn't it? Like it would be a government official.
Gonna guess, and this is coming from AP News. I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up onto the stream right now. I'm guessing that this is what you're referencing. So this article says Canada joins EU Defense Fund as the country pivots away from the US. Toronto has joined.
Yes, that's what
Toronto has joined a major European Union defense fund. Prime Minister Mark Carney's office said Monday, as the country looks to diversify its military spending away from the United States. Plan allows Canadian defense companies access to 150 billion euro EU loan program known as Security Action for Europe, or SAFE. That would allow Canadians firms to secure cheap EU-backed loans to procure military equipment. Canada is the first non-EU country to gain access. So, all right.
That's not China.
It's not China, but again, he did say he was talking about Canada and the EU, so I'm assuming that is what he was referring. So, I'm going to start the timer. Continue as you were, gentlemen.
All right, thank you very much. So, but you don't have anything about whether they're trying to go with China or Russia. They're pretty much saying,
but why is that important? If they're trying to diversify.
Yeah,
it doesn't say they're
let me finish my
North
question.
America.
Let me finish my question. The question is that you're pretty much saying that they are increasing their own military spending, right?
Excuse me?
You're only saying that they're increasing their own military spending, right?
Who is?
The EU, Canada, people that are applied to us in a sense.
Obliged to us?
Allied, in alliance.
But just because if the international community includes our allies and our allies lose trust in us, is that not us losing trust? If they want to say, hey, instead of relying on the US, we'll rely on Canada, is that us
I
not
agree with
losing
you.
certain...
The United States, listen, I agree with you. The United States has lost all of the trust in these fucking nations that are around us, but that has nothing to do with whether they rely on us and trust us or not.
Whoa. Run that back. What does that mean?
Yeah. The US has lost the trust of them. They are completely trustless. We don't trust them at all.
Is that not losing trust for the international community? Has they not lost trust?
No, it's the other way around. They trust us all the time. But listen, I'm gonna finish this.
What do you mean by trust then?
This questioning. I'm gonna this that can be done in your cross, right? My cross is: do they still rely on us protecting the seas?
That doesn't mean we didn't lose trust. If we lost trust, it doesn't mean we have no trust.
Why would you rely on someone you don't trust?
Hey, say I'm like a slave on a plantation. I'm relying on my master. I don't trust him not beat my ass. I mean, he has the food, he has the money, he has the housing. Doesn't mean that there's other alternatives. The US may be the only alternative, the only option.
All right.
Because we are the
doesn't mean we trust them or not going to try to move away from them.
Because we're the benevolent masters. Okay.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in real quick. I feel like there were a couple of places where the conversation, where I don't feel like y'all were understanding each other, but I think that that's going to get better when we get to the open part. I don't generally interfere and moderate directly unless I absolutely have to. So hopefully you guys are going to be able to connect the dots there. But we're going to go ahead and go to your opening now, Mr. Emmett. 3 minutes is on the clock, sir. Go ahead and start it up whenever you're ready.
Yeah, well, what we normally see or hear from the lefty communities when it comes to the trust in the United States, they virtue signal, right? Oh my God, the international community has lost the trust in the United States. Meanwhile, they rely on us. They rely on us to keep the trade routes safe and open. They rely on us, to provide even for wars we disagree on, like in Ukraine. With this, they rely on us for so much at the end of the day. They can go on and be all commie and say all they want to do with China, which, by the way, still relies on us. We put on the tariffs. The economy was suffering, just suffering. So it doesn't even matter because what they rely on is our military might, and they can trust that we have it because you can see it. What happened to Maduro? What's happening right now in Iran, going back decades, because they just, because at the end of the day, what they trust about us, what they rely on us is force. That's the only thing they care for. Do you think they have ever been like, oh yes, the United States, oh, we love them? Of course not. Nobody does that. We're talking about fucking politicians. Leftists will tell you, do you trust the politicians? Oh, which one of you leftists trust the politicians? I don't think anybody here will be like, yes, politicians, take all of this money. You can do whatever you want with it. Even though that's all the prescriptions that they have, at the end of the day, they have a double talk in their mind. One side is telling, give more to the government, and the other side is saying, I don't trust them at all whatsoever. So no, we have all of the trust and the respect that we need from the international community. In fact, they've lost respect and trust from our side because of all the dumbassery they're doing. But at the end of the day, they still trust us because they rely on our force. And they will keep on relying on that force. With that, I will cede the rest of my time. I'm ready to go into cross.
All right. Cheers. Well, then in that case, Game Boy, ball's in your court, sir. 3 minutes on the clock. Use it as you need to.
Certain economic benefits that these nations have and that they trust the U.S. to provide?
Yes, of course. They trust us to provide the security in the seas that they need in order for them to have any kind of economic benefit at all.
What does that entail?
For example, the Strait of Hormuz, if it's open at all or not, is dependent upon us. If you go through Somalia, the only reason why you can even go there is because they know the military complex is there to provide safety. If you go to Africa, it's the same thing. We own the seas in a sense.
Do you think, for example, that the amount of bonds or trust we have in our treasury system is reflective on what the international community feels towards our broader government or country?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that most of our treasury a lot of our debt is even taken by other countries because they have to trust us, or else anyway, right? Because what they trust about
Well,
us is not that we are nice people. They trust about us that we have the force.
what do you mean by force?
Well, I don't know if you know, but for example, we have the three major air forces in the world belong to the United States, for example. Our military,
Well,
people know what our military is capable of doing.
but do you think if, say, we use that military for a war per se, or military action that the international community does not support, that could reflect poorly on how these governments treat us? Because if we're not willing to listen to them
How
or
do I
their needs,
care? Listen, why do I
yeah,
care
but
if they
isn't that
disagree or
reflective
not?
of their
All
trust?
they
It's about like
the
the
only no
government
wait.
these things.
The only thing they need to trust about me is that I have the force. That's all they need to trust, and they do.
No. Let's go to the slave master example. If I'm being your ass, well, I have the force. I can trust that this guy has the force, but that doesn't mean squat.
Can you do anything
You're
about it?
it for me.
Yeah, can you
What?
do anything about it, absent force? Let's say that you're my slave. If I'm not gonna let you
There's a
go, can you
difference
do anything
between
about it,
trust
absent force?
and reliance. You realize that,
No, you
right?
trust. you realize that you trust that I have the force, otherwise you would do something about it, right?
No, me knowing something does not equivalent to me trusting and acting as your ally.
Yeah,
think
you
that's
trust
what
in you have the
trusting from
trust
the
that I
international
will
community
beat your
means.
ass if you don't do what I say.
China
Thus,
trusts
do what
we
I
have
say,
military
right?
power, but they don't trust us enough to constantly collaborate with us. That's why we've seen China slowly back out of trade with us and slowly try to form their own
Well, yeah, it's the other
petrol
way
dollar
around.
to
We
some
don't trust the
extent.
Chinese. We don't trust everybody else. Why would we trust them when they're
What do
acting
you
against
mean by
our
that?
interests?
You flip flopping the definition of trust. You
We
go from
I
we
don't
trust
trust
we
that
can
they
beat your
will act in
ass to
accordance to my interests, but they trust that we have the force.
okay,
Thus,
then
they
that's what I'm
act
saying.
in
The
accordance
international
to that.
community has lost a lot of trust, and they no
Yeah.
longer trust that we can work in our interest. Do you agree with
It's
that?
the other way around. They know what we do. They keep on trusting us because they keep
You're
relying
flip-flopping the
on us to
definitions.
protect
You're
the
going
seas.
from
Let him
they
But
finish
we're not
his
we
gonna
can
answer,
work
Game
with a
Boy.
bunch
Let
of
him finish his
dummies
answer.
because we can't trust them.
Sorry, just try not to talk over each other if you guys can avoid it, please. Nobody's gish galloping here, so just let him finish.
They trust us because they keep relying upon us, keeping the seas open. They keep relying upon our force so they trust that we're gonna be using it for good. Otherwise, they wouldn't be trusting it, right? But we don't trust them. They have been acting more and more radical and more dumb as time goes by. They're a bunch of commies now. Why would we trust them? It's the other way around. We don't want to deal with commies.
That is the big. That's like, huh?
Huh?
So, that is like, so. It's one thing for the U.S. not to trust other nations to act in our interest, but the moment we talk about trust from other nations towards us, it's well, we trust this level of force, and it's not the same definition of trust as trust that they will serve our interest as well. It's not a mutual exchange. Do you think that
It's
like
very
there's
simple, okay? The argument is very simple. Do they rely on us keeping the seas open?
does that matter?
Of course.
How does
they're
that connect
doing
to the
trade?
prompt?
How are they doing trade?
Yeah,
It's
but
most
they
of the trade.
rely
It's most
on
of the
us. It
world's
doesn't mean that
trade
they
done
trust
through
us
the
in
sea.
other aspects. If they could find a way around that, would they trust us to work in their interest?
I don't. Why would they? Right? They think the U.S. is a
Why
horrible
would they
place.
trust
Anyway,
us to work
I
in our
I
interest?
know it because I've seen what they have to say. Have you ever read about the international community? What they think of the U.S.?
Well, that's
There's
my
literally
point. That the U.S.
one of the
has
first
lost the
things. Wait,
trust from the international
yes,
community because we
about
constantly
10
flip
years
up
ago.
what we do.
Yeah, I'm answering your question. About 10 or 15 years ago, I'm bilingual. I speak Spanish. I was literally told if I go to to the EU, my best bet to be better treated was to not speak English. It was to speak Spanish because they hate Americans. So at the end of the day, it hasn't changed. They still hate us. They rely on us anyway. Okay, all of the trade that we see in the seas, they all the only reason why they do it as freely as they can is because they rely on us. They trust that we will use that force for their interest because we care about trade at the end of the day. Okay, so tell me, how many of them have their own ships, their own military out in the sea right now, protecting all of the sea like the Americans do?
I Canada,
How many
but
of them how many of them rely on us being the deterrent so that Taiwan, that is the manufacturer, the greatest manufacturer of chips in the world, will keep on doing that, instead of,
have you
getting
seen the
China to
push?
invade the island?
Have you not seen the Euro Chip Act in which they're trying to actively move away from South Korea and Taiwanese chips? They're
Yeah,
trying to get
they're
away
trying to
from
move
us,
away,
trying to
but they're
make their own
still
industry because they
perfect, but
don't
they're still
trust the
relying on us,
stability
right?
of American-supported uh, chip manufacturing.
Or maybe they
Is
just
that
want to have a chip because they know it's a good enterprise, right?
yeah, it's a good enterprise, but they also know they have control over it because they don't trust American control over that form of
Yeah.
manufacturing.
Well, tell me how many of them have ships right now in the sea saying we don't trust the U.S. military, thus we need to have our ships out in the sea in case there's anybody doing piracy.
Pulling
We're
from
going to
the
stop them.
treasury. Not too long ago, France pulled from the treasury $15 million. I mean, $15 billion
Who cares?
calculated in gold. Is that not? What
Listen,
do you
I
mean? Who
don't trust that.
cares?
I don't trust the French to do anything. I don't trust the French to do anything. The first thing they do in war is surrender anyway. Okay, nobody
When's
cares
the
what
last
the
time
fucking
we
French
fought
will ever do anything.
on behalf of the Europeans?
I don't care about the Europeans. The reason why I don't care about the Europeans is because
When's the
they're
last time
acting
we
like
fought
commies.
on behalf
Their
of Africa?
economy is
When's the last time we
stagnant.
fought on behalf of Latin America? When's the last time we fought on behalf of anyone outside of ours?
No, yeah,
Our self-interest.
no, never. I don't want ever to fight on behalf
The
of
trust,
people.
quote unquote,
We do
is
it on
behind it.
behalf of American interests.
Is that trust at
That's the
all?
only reason why.
Sorry, I was talking over you. What did you say?
Do you want the United States to be the world police and do it on behalf of other people? Or do you want the United States to be doing things on behalf of its own interest?
What does the international, like, how does that possibly, like, if we're talking about the prompt, sorry, like,
Yeah, the prompt is the international community has lost trust on the United States, except they all rely on us and trust us to keep the lines open on sea. None of them have done any major movements to say, hey, United States, we don't want you to do that anymore. We don't trust you, thus we're going to close it and we're going to do it
you
ourselves. In
literally
fact,
said earlier they're constantly doing stuff to
relying on
avoid the
us.
United States because there are a whole bunch of commies. Is that not
Yeah,
them
they're a bunch
being
of
like,
commies.
we're trying to avoid the United States, but we're relying upon them, so
No.
we're taking small motions?
We want to avoid them now because they're acting like commies and we cannot rely on anything they say.
We're
Because
trying to
they
avoid
say
them.
we're your allies, we're allied, but in reality they act like they're not. Thus, we have lost faith on them, but they still rely on us. They still trust that we're gonna keep the trade open. They still use our currency for international trading. They keep on doing that. Where do you think they get most of the military and most of NATO? Where do you think NATO gets most of the funding? The United States. They rely on us. At the end of the day, they keep trusting us. They keep relying on us.
Is
Do you have
trust
any
to you
future-
just the like assurance of something that's a constant, rather than
Yeah, of
we're going to
course.
continue to try to rely on you?
But let me put it this way: when you get married, do you trust your partner that will be there?
Yeah, but I also have a different definition of trust apparently in a relationship.
Oh, okay. What
I
is your
also
definition of
trust that my
trust?
partner, like, if I want them to do something, they would also do it. They're going to work in
Yeah,
my
we've done
interest and
it.
work in theirs.
We keep it open. We still keep all the trade routes open.
Is that
They
the
come
bare
to us,
minimum?
and we
Does
keep on
that not
doing
mean
it.
that we've
They-
lost
they-
trust in
it-
so many
you
other
know,
areas?
It's very simple. They complained like crybabies for all the tariffs. They done the tariffs to us all this time, right? Why would they complain about what the fuck they're doing? So it's not about them losing trust in us. They know that we're gonna keep on working to have good trade, to be humanitarian, to keep on doing what we've been doing for the past 60 years. They have changed the way they do stuff. They are the ones who are becoming more and more communist. They're the ones moving away. We have lost trust in them. They still trust us. They still rely on us. We keep on doing the same thing.
Can I pause and ask you a question? Like, just an honest question.
Yeah, ask me a question.
What do you mean
Mhm.
they became more communist? Like, what do you mean by, like, became communist? Became communist?
Yeah, they become more and more reliant on Marxist socialist systems.
Like, how?
Do you know what communism and socialism is?
No, but, like, how are they doing it?
No, I'm asking you a question. I need a clarifying. Do you know
No,
what communism
I'm
and
saying
socialism
yes.
is?
I understand it. I'm just trying to see the
Okay.
correlation here. How's, like, French communist? Like, Germany? Huge communist over there?
Well, yes, of course. What they've been doing is they've been putting more and more socialist systems in the government. They've been adding more and more regulations into it. They've been moving more and more towards these totalitarian ideas of regime, and they've been doing it through welfare systems. If you read any of the Lenin writings, when he was talking about the future, he said that probably in the future there were not going to be any violent revolutions. What they were going to happen is they're going to have a socialist regime, and they're going to be little by little increasing the amount of things that the government is going to do for you until the government is the only thing. And that's what we've seen especially in Europe.
So I'm going to put
So
5 minutes
if
on the
you go
clock,
to
but
Europe-
real quick, I just want to say I'm putting 5 minutes on the clock. Please try to tie this back to the prompt as soon as possible, though. Go ahead.
Okay, so if you go to Europe and you see what they've been doing when it comes to the whole economy, it literally has become more and more reliant upon socialist ideas. But the fun part about all of that is that none of it correlates to military power, because they rely on the United States and they keep on relying on the United States. So they trust us. Otherwise, they would be increasing the amount of military that they have, and they will be doing against us, right? They will be moving to the seas. They would stop having this kind of open lanes, because they wouldn't trust us anymore. But they don't.
Do you think the EU is taking no steps to form their own military separate of say like NATO, which, like you said, America owned?
No, they don't, and you can see it because the whole of the military spending and a lot of the military things that they've done
about
has gone
PESCO?
through Ukraine anyway. So they cannot even rely on the superpowers that you mentioned, right? Because Russia, China, all of them are allied. So who are they going to rely on? Are they going to do it on their own? But in reality, most of their spending is going to Ukraine anyway. On a war that they're losing.
What about like the EU forming PESCO? Do you think that was just nothing?
Yeah, I think what they're doing is absolutely nothing.
So like that's not even like them taking steps to like move away from America. That's just a big nothing burger.
Yeah, it's a big nothing burger because they don't even have the economy in order to be able to use it. Their economy has been stagnant. The way
So
some
you
ways
can
is stagnant is
do
because they
nothing.
take all of the. Not the way
Like,
that they're
they
doing
can-
it. The way that they're doing it is they're virtue signaling. Virtue signal means nothing. What have they
if they
done?
can-
Tell me of a thing they've done that has actual teeth, that they say, oh, this is what they're doing. Have they increased their militaries like per capita?
Yes.
How much?
I don't know an exact number, but they definitely have. They formed an entire organization for that purpose and that purpose alone.
Yeah,
They're
I know
too.
commies love
They're
to
just
do
not a
organizations that mean
superpower
absolutely
yet.
nothing. This is what I said, per capita. How much have their military has increased? How many boats have
Okay.
they put in the sea?
Hold on, let me look it up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the timer while you do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. You can go back up.
All right, continue. What's the answer?
Over the past 10 years, it's increased by 80% per capita military spending in the EU on average, and 150%
Not spending. The
in
number of
investment
people. We don't
intensity.
know. Yeah, but it's like zero, and they added a little bit because how much of that is because Trump literally told them that they had to now spend money on the military in NATO?
So like if they're okay, that's the EU.
It's
That's
like
not NATO.
10,000. The EU apports to NATO military spending?
Excuse me. What was that
Does
word?
does the EU or the European countries spend money on NATO?
If the US is doing it, like you said, like what are you trying to get at with that point?
So they trust us, right? At the end of the day, they have, especially the past decades, they just trust us. All they
It
do is
rose by
trust us.
55.
And they keep on trusting
It
us.
rose by 500 billion in 2025 alone.
Yeah, from
So they have.
okay, 500 billion from how
If
much?
they're trying to move away from the U.S., why would they invest in NATO and not the EU?
They invest in NATO. Or this is what I'm asking you.
No, that's not
This is
my
the problem that I
question.
have with your
My
numbers.
question-
Well, how much it was before?
Let-
Because there was a
let me-
moment in
let
time
me
before
rephrase the question. Let me rephrase the question. If they're
Before
trying to
Trump-
split, if they're trying to split away from America, why would they invest in NATO and not the EU?
if they're trying to, if they're trying to,
like you said, if they're
split?
trying to like get their own military worth, why would they invest in NATO, which majority spender will always be the US? Why don't they invest in EU as a separate entity?
Do they? Because I don't think they do. That's the point.
It was a question. Yes or like what is it? What is it? It's not like questioning the question. Why wouldn't they?
I don't understand your question. You're saying, hey, these
Jesus
people
Christ.
that are allied, and if every time you spend on your military, it's like you're spending in NATO because they are allied. It's like I don't understand. If they
Time.
what do you mean by that? Can you clarify your question?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm going to go ahead and jump in there just because I'm a little bit confused. I think the judges are both confused. I know the chat is confused. So I think we all kind of lost the thread a little bit there. So we're just going to go ahead and move straight into the questions section. And I think that's going to be okay. Now, for what it's worth, we do have a few questions from chat, which I'm pretty sure I know who they're directed at. So I'm going to judge them, or I'm going to direct them accordingly. And I'm actually going to use them as my questions instead. So, with that said, my first question is going to be to Game Boy. So the prompt says the United States has lost the trust of the international community. You agree with that statement. The question from the chatter, anonymous, is, do they still trust us to provide life-saving medications and aid? I'm going to put 1 minute on the clock for you to think about that. Go ahead and answer it as you're ready. Does the international community still trust us when it comes to aid and medication assistance?
Yeah. I think we've lost trust in a litany of other ways, but I think that there are certain parts, like my opponent was saying, that military aid and trade assistance are still a thing. Just because we lost trust doesn't mean we've lost all trust, which is what I tried to get out a few times and then got told, no, you don't understand. They trust us to do this.
Gotcha.
Even though we really have no say.
All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and ask the other real quick question. This one is going to go to both of the two debaters. This one is also from the chatters. It's kind of a meme question, but I also think that it's a valid question. So, who has influenced our trust in the international community, and why is your answer Israel? So, the meme aside,
for me?
It's for both of you. Who do you think what nation has had the biggest impact on the trust within the international community?
Oy vey. I don't think I should answer that. No, I don't know. Probably the U.S.
You think the
like
U.S.'s
doing its own
actions
thing.
specifically are the ones that have influenced the trust of the international community?
I would
I
say
think
it's the Mexican.
and
I would say the Mexicans are the ones that have done it the most, especially when it comes to we need a wall that it needs to be 10 foot higher every 10 days, because those guys will not stop, wet backing into the U.S.
Dude, it's LeBron, bro. It's LeBron.
All right.
If we're
good
just
stuff.
saying stuff, it's LeBron.
Yep, sure. We're just saying stuff. All right, cool. So now, going to go to the judges. Tyler, you're up first, sir. 1 minute's on the clock for you. Please hit Game Boy with a question.
First of all, disavow all the Israel stuff you guys said.
Hey, I didn't say anything. The chat did.
Yeah, you guys, all of you are one to me.
We'll discuss that later.
When Trump went to the EU in 2017, he pointed out that buying Russian energy was undermining efforts into NATO, and he was mocked. They actually physically laughed at him in person. Turns out when Ukraine was invaded, the EU had to scramble to get off their energy and came back to the U.S. to start buying these exports. Now we see we supplanted Russia as their majority energy sale importer, and it's a long-term deal. Doesn't this massive economic investment coupled with the United States signify that not only do they trust us more than another geopolitical power, but that they're going to be with us long-term?
Did
I
you
think
follow that? All right, good. Go ahead.
There's more layers to that than on the surface, because I think they were desperately looking for Ukraine as a potential future ally. And so with Russia trying to invade Ukraine, however you want to interpret that, it did compromise a broader goal of that NATO exercise, I guess. And so I think America, being someone that could provide that wealth and supplement the Russian economy, was what led to them being trusted more. But I think if that conflict never happened, we would have never seen that jump to the American oil system. And I think even to an extent, over the past few years, we've seen that slowly and slowly, we've seen Russian oil coming back into the global economy somehow, some way, even with the tariffs.
All right. Now we're going to go over to you, Jesus. Whenever you're ready, sir. Please
Not
hit Game
tariffs.
Boy with a
Sorry.
question.
It's for Game Boy question.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
So this is kind of a two-parter that I think you both for not talking about. But what is trust, and how is that different than the trust, as the prompt dictates?
Give me a second. Fuck with the name, by the way. I think trust, or the trust, in the international community is how much we say the U.S. is relied upon, or can be relied upon, or is perceived to be relied upon for fulfilling the needs of its allies. You wouldn't be an ally with someone if you didn't expect something out of it, or that could be simply peace. If you can't rely upon the U.S. to provide peace, which I don't think the international community does, and I think that the numbers for the current administration have reflected that, I think we don't see the trust. You can't simply trust someone to be the way they are. You have to trust someone to provide for you, and you provide for them in a mutual exchange.
Good stuff. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and move this over to Emmett for some questions. Once again, I'm going to supplant my question using the chatter's question. And if you would, for the audience and for me, please define communism as you understand it. Whatever your terms or whatever, but how do you personally define communism? What does that word mean to you, sir?
Yeah, of course. Communism is just an idea of power, of reliance of power within the government. All it does is fox virtue when it comes to the economic system in which we're trying to get everybody to have equity. It's obviously relying on Marxist ideations and ideologies. So I don't necessarily mean that you have to live in the perfect utopia of the communist system. It's just a movement towards this supposed utopia that usually ends up in tyrannical regimes like the USSR, Cuba, the Venezuelan regime that that they're living under right now, stuff like that.
Okay. All right. Tyler, go ahead with a question for Emmett, please.
Oh, where did I put my Emmett question? All right.
It's underneath
Question
those
for
giant
Emmett.
throbbing pecs.
Oh, man. That shit's so fucking funny. All right. Emmett, you say the U.S. has the force, and you admit that we use tariffs on our allies and bully them around, though you say it's retribution. You say that they didn't. You say if they didn't trust us, they wouldn't let them protect them with force anymore. But the example that he brought up was that the EU and Canada are forming their own military alliance and defenses. Specifically, they're also decoupling from the U.S. militarily and trading with their adversaries. So just like a bully pushing a weaker kid around, It takes time for you to go to the gym, learn karate, and go in there and push the bully back. Isn't building up their military and trading with our geopolitical adversaries the first steps you would take on that path of decoupling due to lack of trust?
I would say that you are correct in that ideation. The problem that I see when it comes to them even actually doing that is that most of the time they're not the agreements that they have are mostly symbolic. So they keep on relying upon us, and they will keep on relying upon us because their economies cannot do what our economy can do, which is create enough money to spend $1 trillion in just military spending.
Right. And Lutch, do you have a question ready for Mr. Emmett too?
Indeed, I do.
Shoot.
I'm trying to pick between the two.
The struggle is
I'll
real.
go with is trust the same as reliance?
Okay. Is
Well, I
trust
will
the
go
same as
ahead and
reliance?
defer to yeah, I will go ahead and defer directly to Gamer Boy definition of trust, in which he actually said, in which he actually said that it was reliance. So in this case, yeah, they trust us because they rely on us.
Okay. Was that not a satisfactory answer for you, Lutch?
I don't think so.
All right, ask the question again. We'll give him another shot at it, please.
So I'm just asking: is trust itself the same as reliance itself? Not is their trust or lack thereof the same as their reliance or lack
No,
thereof?
I'm deferring to the definition to the one given by Gamer Boy, in which he says that trust is reliance. They rely on us and we rely on them. We can't rely on them, but they still rely on us. So we've lost trust in them, but they trust us. That would be the answer I will give.
All right.
I don't think I need to provide a super definition when I agree with the definition.
For sure. All right. In that case, we're going to go ahead and move on to our closing arguments. Remember, chat, just a few moments, you guys are going to get the chance to weigh in and tell us where you guys land on this one. 3 minutes is on the clock. Gamer Boy, it is your opportunity to close. I'm sorry. I had to. Game Boy, please go ahead and put your closing arguments.
So, just FYI, Twin, we don't agree on the definition. I meant rely as in, hey, say I buy an apple and I give you $5. You trust me, give you the $5. You trust me that I won't just take the apple or I won't just shoot your barber. You trust me to do what I say I'm going to do and say what I'm going to say, which is thank you very much. I'll get another apple tomorrow. We have a mutual agreement with our allies that we will do certain things, either explicitly or implicitly. In the moment that they don't trust us can be indicated by them pulling out of not taking bonds. They're all of a sudden taken out of our treasury, like France did. They're all of a sudden starting to make more military so that they don't have to rely on us as much. Even though we are still a global superpower and they won't have as much resources as us, which I've made clear enough, doesn't mean that they aren't trying to distance themselves from us like a toxic ex, but you live in the same home. There's certain things you can't do at the moment that they wish they could do. In other cases, they did trust us, which they have in the past. They wouldn't be going out of their way of taking their money out of our banks. They wouldn't be going out of their way of making their own militaries. They wouldn't be going out of their way to constantly disagree with us politically because they trust that we align politically. Every few years, we have a different foreign policy. Russia doesn't have that. China doesn't have that. If we're talking about trust when it comes to strength, China has 10, 15-year-long foreign policy plans. When has the U.S. stayed with the same foreign policy for more than 5 years? Look at the Paris Agreement. We were pushing for that in 2015. Then we got a president who said we don't like that in 2017. and got out of it in 2020. And by the next year, we had a different president who was like, let's join that again. That's not a consistent foreign policy. That's not portraying at all any strength or reliability. They can't even rely on us to be environmental. How can they rely on us to do what they want militarily? The past few wars or military involvements we've had, everyone we were aligned with was like, no, we don't like that, with maybe the exception of the UK. But even then, it's iffy, it's wafty. If you research, interviewed 24 countries not too long ago, 2 years ago, and asked them, do you think America should be the world police? They didn't say that. They said something like world power. And it was less than 50%. Less than 50%? Are you tripping balls? Anyway, don't call me Gamer Boy.
All right. That's good. That's time. Emmett, 3 minutes is on the clock for you, sir. Go ahead and bring it home. Your closing thoughts, sir.
Yeah. So Gamer Boy told us about the new definition that he came up at the end of his idea, except I don't understand the definition. The definition of trust was trust. So yes, I guess I cannot even say that I agree with the definition for some reason, but I do agree with the definition. The definition is they trust us because they rely on us. They keep on relying on us. Okay? When they had to go get energy, who do they go to? The United States. When they need to, get somebody to actually protect the seas so they can trade, who do they go to? The United States. I don't care about what they have to say. There's a very good saying. We don't care about what people say. We care about what they do. And you know what they do? They rely on us, which means they trust us. Because as he said, when they want an apple, in this case protection, they don't go to the Russians. They go to the Americans. And every single time that you have seen that, who do they go to? The Americans. Now, he can't pretend that they're moving away. They're moving away from the United States. They're moving away. How they're doing it? Oh, well, they signed a little bit of agreements and say some stupid words online about how they're going to create a new world order. Yeah, that's what we want, right? That's what you guys want. Nobody wants that. What we want is to, protect our freedoms, keep us, and do in our interest. So we have lost faith on them. We have lost trust on what they're doing because they're acting like little crybabies. But in reality, what they do is they keep on trusting us. So it's not a problem of it's not a problem of what they even, it's not a problem of what they say, because they can say whatever they want. They're a bunch of idiots. It's about what they do. What they do is rely on us and trust us. Because that is the definition of trust in accordance to him. Okay? Trust is, you go to them, you give them something, and you rely that they will give you something back. They come to us, they rely on us, they take our equipment, they take our infrastructure, they use our stuff. At the end of the day, who they go to? The United States. And with that, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the debate. And I will always call him Gamer Boy or whatever. I don't know his name.
All right. Very cool. So with that, we are done with our second debate, kids. We're going to go ahead and put this into the chat. I will put this into all of the places I can put it, if you know what I mean, giggity. And I will get all of you guys out there to please vote. This is going to go into the Discord room as well, so that those of you over there on YouTube can vote. Boom, boom, boom. And we're going to go to our judges first, of course.
So, for the opening, Game Boy did abstract art for his opening. He made a bunch of statements. They didn't really string together that well. Kind of think I picked up what he was putting down at the time. I definitely figured it out.
It's bigger picture.
Yeah. But Emmett laid out a really coherent argument, built his stepping stones fantastically well. Again, I knew how to get from point A to B to C with him. Just a good setting of the narrative. I think it's smart that he knew that the good counter argument was going to be Trump did all these things to our allies, what the fuck? And he preempted it with saying, we actually lost trust in them, and that's why we're doing it. It's just whether it's true or not is up for Game Boy to dispute. But the fact that he preempted what his opponent was going to say and built his argument around it is a very strong tactic that I wish we saw more of here. Yeah, so Game Boy actually had the better cross, I feel like. He had the winning argument here. I kind of feel like Game Boy, I don't take this the wrong way, I feel like your mind went to the right place, but you kind of dropped the ball once you got into the actual back and forth on it. You had the right argument, like that them decoupling from us in terms of economics and military was a very good first step for them actually actually like getting behind what they say. So I feel like Emmett was able to kind of push you to your limit on that argument, though, by asking you for example. And then the one example, we paused the debates for you to go look it up. You brought up a much larger time frame of money increasing in spending in these EU nations than your example set out from just a few months ago in January. You're like, the last 10 years they put this much in. And Emmett was easily able to come in there and say, well, most of that was because Trump put pressure on them and forced them to increase their spending. And it allowed him to take your narrative out from underneath you. And then you guys moved on to the next thing. I think if you would have prepped around that argument, you probably would have won this. Like, it was, even with the terrible opening you did, and the closing as well. Emmett had command of this the entire time. He was able, like, to kind of push you around on when you had the better point. And I don't know, I kind of just, again, like that he got ahead of the accusations about Trump. I really, like, think that was a strong tactic on his part. Emmett just prepped very well. He was ready to go. He knew his arguments, and whether you like him or not is, whatever, but he just was ready to go in the context of this debate, and I think it actually was like an 8-2.
All right, 8-2 for Game Boy, you say, correct?
No, for Emmett. 2-8.
Oh, so 2-8. All right, 2-8 for the negative. Yeah, I was about to say all of your comments conflicted with that, but that's okay. All right.
I was always talking to Game Boy the whole time.
No, I know.
It's over. The lead's not safe. The lead's not safe.
All right, Jesus.
Great.
Jesus, are you ready for your judgment, sir?
Gamer Boy.
You fed him ammunition, Game Boy, and you know that. All right, go ahead, Jesus.
So for most of the debate, I was really split because Emmett employed a lot more debate tactics in terms of presenting the argument that he wanted to present, and again walking us through that instead of just having the position. But I feel like there was a lot of bad faith down to the very last question when I asked about trust and reliance. Like, well, I'm going to say what he said and strawman what Game Boy said. So what else do I want to say? Yeah, and I agree with Tyler that a Game Boy should have had a much stronger position, but I think Game Boy, you had the point, but Emmett being a strong debater, it felt to me like you were letting him push you around, and I felt like, oh, he's saying this strongly, so he must be right. I'm not trying to read your mind, but that's just how it came off to me. And instead of focusing on this is why I think this is why I think I'm correct, I would have liked to see a lot more of teasing out what Emmett was saying and knocking down the specifics, like when he was saying, "Oh, they're all becoming commies," and you specifically asked, "Oh, how did they become commie?" And he gave you an answer, and you drilled down into that. I wish there would have been a lot more of that, but given the bad faith, I do have to give it to Game Boy at 6-4.
6-4 to Game Boy.
That's what we're talking about.
All right, calm down. Keep it in your pants. All right, well, guess what? That means that the vote actually is going to matter this time. Chat, please get your votes locked in. I did put it over there. You guys, Tyler and Jesus, both of you guys put it in your chats, I think. So once again, Emmett, I assume you've put it in your chat as well if you're streaming. Everybody, please go ahead and click that link. I'm going to drop it one more fucking time just because everybody Your votes matter. You guys are deciding the winner here, so please get it done. I'm going to tell you, because you said something in the Discord or in the chat earlier, I am no longer going to be doling out the MVPs. They're no longer meaningful, so there's no point. I'm just going to go ahead and keep my 2 cents to myself.
Please.
Yeah, no,
Please.
they no longer matter,
Help my
man.
confidence.
All right, well, maybe I'll still think about it, but at least for the time being, I'm keeping them under my hat. So
If there's no MVP, then you're just a narrator.
a moderator, correct? That's right. I don't get to judge, man. Again, I'm not cool enough. All right, so I'm going to give you guys just a couple more seconds to lock this in, because right now it is tied. 1 vote from Tyler for Emmett, 1 vote from Jesus for Game Boy. So we're going to go ahead and 3, 2, 1. Last vote's locked in, and let's see where it landed. It's pretty close, kids. It's pretty close. It is 13 votes for the Aff and 9 votes for the negative.
Really
that is 6-4 for Game Boy. So the audience has spoken, and with a split decision vote, it looks like Game Boy is going to take the win here tonight. A lack of financial literacy is the reason most Americans fall behind in life. We are doing this by a morally superior vegan affirming, and Searka, our regular here, is negating that prompt. We all know how this works. I'm going to go ahead and look over at you first, vegan. 3 minutes is on the clock for you, sir. Without further ado, please open this up.
Hey guys, I'm vegan. I'm vegan, by the way. And since I'm against Searka, obviously I have shat my pants at this point, so I'll just have to deal with that. So I take the affirmative on that. Lack of financial literacy is the reason that most Americans fall behind, because I think that a lot of the times you hear statistics on stuff like, oh, X percentage of people don't have access to like housing or food or whatever necessary thing it is that they need. And these polls or these statistics never go in depth about why it is they don't have that. And digging deeper, I think the evidence will show that the reason that people don't have these things is driven very powerfully by the fact that they don't make the best choices because they are unaware of choices that would be better for them. And in the case of the other side of things, I don't argue that there is no reason or there is no ability for people to argue for change, like on a systemic level. I think people, when they focus on improving themselves, can also focus on trying to change the system in some way to the benefit of themselves as well as others in society. I think it's more critical to focus on yourself, because if you wake up tomorrow and you make one small step, one change to the benefit of yourself, that is something that happens tomorrow. If you think that there needs to be drastic reform in our tax system or our benefit system, or anything along those lines, you can fight for it. And by all means, you have my blessing. Go for it. The issue is that sometimes the way our government works, it's going to be years before any of these changes come. And I wouldn't advise somebody to hedge success in life on something that can happen in an unknown amount of time in the future, if it happens at all. Because as we look through history in our country, things make improvements, or they're more progressive, and then they regress, and then they're progressive and regress. And I think it's better for somebody to use the system that exists as it exists today to their benefit, because that's going to be a far more impactful change in making life better for themselves. I guess that'll be my opening.
All right. Not a problem. Searka, 3 minutes is on the clock for you, sir. You know what to do with this. Cross-examine as you see fit, sir.
All right. Hey, Morally Superior Vegan. I heard a little bit of mentioning about scarcity there. Now, I want to ask you, are you claiming that lack of financial literacy is the primary reason most Americans fall behind?
I would say it is definitely a very powerful reason why most Americans fall
The
behind.
primary one, right?
I'll stay with primary reason.
Okay, so is it bigger than income instability?
I would argue that income instability is still a metric of financial literacy, in the sense that if somebody has one job.
And what definition of financial literacy are you using?
I mean, human capital is, for low income earners, the largest aspect of finances for low income earners.
Okay, so you're going to be using, essentially, if I'm not mistaken, Anna Marie's definition then, right? Because Anna Marie's definition and Mitchell's definition don't include that. Income instability, housing costs, medical debt, job loss, all these things are not included in their definition, if we're going to be talking about human capital.
I guess I don't know Anna Marie or...
It's about how financial information can be treated as an investment, correct? So this would be borrowing, saving, retirement, portfolio decisions, and nothing to do with income instability. Now, I want to move on, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
During the Great Recession, okay, did millions of people lose jobs because they lacked individual financial literacy?
So are we talking the 2008 one?
Yep.
To a degree, yes, because a lot of
Did they become financially illiterate overnight?
No.
Did they, if they were financially literate, did it prevent their layoffs?
I would argue that the issues that they came across was that the way that subprime mortgages worked, they didn't understand the fact that
financial literacies can affect preparation, but they do not explain the shock, correct?
With financial literacy, you still need to include risk in planning.
It doesn't explain the shock. It explains you can affect preparation, I guess, but I'm talking about the shock.
And statistics
millions
show
of people lost their jobs.
Yes.
Did they lose them because of financial literacy?
If we look at the root cause of what caused the crash, and subprime mortgages being
the banks were the ones that did that. They were essentially writing the book on financial literacy there. But moving on, can scarcity make people focus on urgent needs even when they know the better long-term choice?
I think the issue of scarcity is that a lot of people, where over 50% of society says they're living paycheck to paycheck.
Knowing the better choice, I'm just going to point out, because there's not a lot of time, is not the same as having the slack to then do the better choice. Just to be clear.
All right. And with 3 minutes now on the clock for you, Searka, go ahead and open up, sir.
I'm just going to come out right and say it. Most Americans do not fall behind primarily because they lack financial literacy. They fall behind because of a broader opportunity ecosystem shaped by income, employment instability, family wealth, geography, housing, health, social capital, mental bandwidth, timing, and macroeconomic shocks such as the 2008 financial crisis. It is not a lie to say that financial literacy can help improve decisions within that ecosystem. But I just want to point out that people should understand debt, they should understand credit, they should understand interest, savings, taxes, retirement, and scams. A person who understands money has a better chance and shot at avoiding certain mistakes. That is true. Now, claim here is that a lack of financial literacy is the reason. That means primary. Most Americans fall behind in life. Not a reason, not a useful one, and again, the primary cause. So in my opinion, this prompt is too narrow for real life. A family can understand budgeting and still have income that rises and falls every month. The financial diaries also have shown, and this is just some evidential stuff we'll get to, that some families are not simply failing to plan. They are trying to survive unstable paychecks, short-term emergencies, and bills that do not wait politely for the next good week. A worker can understand money and still lose his job in a recession. And a Great Recession did not happen because millions of Americans suddenly forgot how money worked. Jobs vanished, homes were foreclosed, whole towns got hit by a storm they did not personally create. A child can grow up with the same financial lessons as another child and still face a different life because place matters. And opportunity changes by geography, school quality, segregation, family stability, and social capital. So, in my opinion, financial literacy obviously helps someone read a map, but I don't think it's going to help you build the road. It's not just a calculation to have success. It is recognition, timing, judgment, communication, stability, and access. It is seeing the door before it closes and having enough footing to walk through it once you recognize it and know how to capitalize on it. I think financial literacy is just a part of that, but it is not the primary cause or the whole thing. And then I'll end my opening there.
All right. Now we're going to go ahead and put 3 minutes on the clock for you, vegan. You've already seen how this works. 3 minutes on the clock for you to use as you see fit. Poke holes, set up arguments, etc., etc. Go ahead and start it when you're ready.
Sure. I guess the point that I would make, because in my opening, I agreed that, systemic issues can be important and they are a role. But if we were to look at the last 20 years, the recession came and it was bad, and people lost jobs, they lost their homes. But then it was, I think, 4 or 5 years, and then the economy essentially recovered to baseline. Unemployment dropped, everything like that. And since then, everything has been, the economy has been improving to whatever degree that we are till where we're at here. Is it something where, are you saying that only these kind of extreme situations that pop up, like a recession, is that the reason that is why most Americans fall behind?
No.
Okay.
I'm not making the claim that recessions are the main reason people fall behind.
Okay. Was it that it was like where you're born, or like your parental upbringing, your school district and stuff like that? Is that the reason?
It is not the primary reason, no.
What would you say is the primary reason?
I'm going to say that something like income, stability, time, health, transportation, housing, and access before anything financial optimizational becomes meaningful at all. So it'd be something like that: income, stability, time, and health.
Okay. Yeah.
So that would be choice set, if you want more some terminology.
Sure. Okay. So if the possibility, or if there was a possibility for an individual to have more secure housing at a cheaper cost and more secure transportation at a cheaper cost, all that stuff, would you say that that would be one of the driving causes of them to then succeed later on?
No. Now, the second thing would be something akin to bandwidth, is what we call it in economics and behavioral economics. This would be scarcity. So scarcity, evidently, and this is factual, changes the way people purchase or make decisions. So this would be something like when people are under pressure, they know the better long-term choice. They have financial literacy, but oftentimes they don't have the slack to do it. They don't have the extra income. They don't have the extra ability. So the problem here next would not be simply just fixing choice set. It would be that it's not always ignorance. It would be constraint and actually having the stability to then go on and do it, separate from housing and income and stability.
And is scarcity the primary driver of these choices, or in terms of behavioral economics, or are there other things?
Choice set would be the primary driver, in my opinion. After that would be this bandwidth idea.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and put 10 minutes. I'm going to put in 10 minutes on the clock. Just go ahead and roll it straight into the conversation, gentlemen. Keep going.
Sure. So I guess if I were to open on that concept of choice, as long as I understand it properly, housing costs and all these other things are the primary aspect of what can allow somebody to succeed. I'd have to-
Income is the number one. Income's number one. So like
Income number one.
income
And-
has nothing to do with those things.
Okay, and in that sense, that's why I would say financial literacy does include the knowledge that, okay, if I work X job and I make $30,000 a year, but if I don't, or if I'm able to apply 4 weeks of time to, to whatever learning,
Okay.
very vague.
I just
And
want to
then-
point out, I think earlier you mentioned you were using human capital, correct?
Yes.
From Anna Maria Lusardi and Olivia Mitchell, right?
Let me-
So their argument is human capital based. That's where that phrase comes from, right? And
Oh, yeah,
it has a very
yeah,
specific it has a very specific meaning to it. It doesn't include, weighing the opportunity cost or the recognition that a job might pay more. That's not included in financial literacy. If we do that, then we're making the term here just mean nothing. Too broad. If you are going to take the human capital route.
So then I guess what would financial literacy mean to you? Just only what you invest in?
It's borrowing,
with-
saving, retirement, and portfolio decisions.
And how do you save for retirement?
There's many different ways to do that. I don't know if that's relevant.
Like for a low income or a medium income earner, how would they save for retirement?
Well, it wouldn't have anything to do with the income or how you get the income, correct? At least if we're talking about jobs and the average American.
It
That would be
wouldn't do-
afterwards. That would be afterwards. So that would be the whole point of choice set, by the way, is a causal chain here, right? So we have someone who knows how compound interest works, but they have no surplus to invest, right? Correct? That would be
Sure.
a big problem for someone who knows the financial literacy here, but they can't actually make the decision to do it. So it doesn't mean that financial literacy is useless, by the way. It just means that it's downstream, correct? It's not a primary cause.
I mean, I would argue that being able to look at the situation of what with budgeting, obviously budgeting requires an income in some way. And if you're going to look at your budget, you can cut costs, in XYZ reason for whatever,
Income
wherever.
on its own is not going to be affected by budgeting. Budgeting is a downstream idea of income, correct?
I would still argue that being able to make the
Now, I do want to move on to something else, if that's all right. Let's do a little bit of a test here, like a little bit of a question, okay? So,
Yeah.
If you have two people that have the same financial literacy, right?
Yep.
One has family wealth, stable housing, good health, strong networks, and regional opportunity, while the other has debt, instability, poor health, weak networks, and no safety net. Are they equally likely to succeed?
No, I would say the person who's economically stable.
So
would-
financial literacy is not enough to explain the difference, correct?
Okay, so if I pull an equal idea, let's say you have two people of the same situation.
But
same debt,
before we move
same
on,
wealth.
same literacy here, different lives. Doesn't that mean that financial literacy is not the main explanation going on here?
In this particular situation, no.
I mean, that's a
So
pretty common
that's-
one, isn't it?
So if in a situation where you have two people of equal standing, same amount of debt, same everything else, but one person is financially literate and the other is not, the
Okay,
statistics
who's making
show
the real hypothetical now? Two people of equal standing?
like same amount of debt, same amount of everything else.
So I think a better question now would be, what exactly counts as financial literacy?
Understanding, I mean, generally speaking, just understanding how finances work, how budgeting works, human capital. Although you disagree.
How come that includes things like practical judgment or just life competence? Isn't that a little too broad?
When in regards to behavioral choices and financial
Behavioral
decisions?
economics, at least in this regard, again, if we're going to be talking about human capital, that's going to be too broad of a definition.
I'm not talking behavioral economics. I would say, like in behavioral choices for finances, like if you look at somebody who's convinced by advertisements to buy a truck with a 72-month loan is going to be far worse off than somebody who's going to buy a used car, but that's still a behaviorally driven choice to their detriment. So behavior can still play a role, and that is definitely one of the strongest things. There's lifestyle creep, there's the hedonic treadmill that people keep trying to outrun.
Yeah, so
which they
behavior
haven't.
would be like the second cause, or like at least if we're going off of an in order, 1 through 5 causal chain here. Okay, all of them are important though. Now, the third one here would be something like opportunity, right? So, something I actually think is a little more relevant to this, and it's my own personal opinion, but do we think that someone who has financial literacy, okay, has the ability to recognize and convert a non-financial opportunity in order to get income, like a good job?
Can you reword that?
Does someone who have financial literacy, okay, does it automatically mean they know how to recognize and convert a non-financial opportunity, which could be getting a new job? As in, let's say you're at a bar top, you strike up conversation with the guy next to you. You get to know him personally. You're very personal with him. He likes you. He mentions that he has a position that he's looking for. Even if you don't really have the expertise, or honestly, maybe you're not even that qualified to take it, he still decides to give you an interview. Do you think having financial literacy is going to give you the tools to recognize and convert on that non-financial opportunity?
I think that case is definitely
recognizing it?
would be a very minority aspect. So if we were to look at the prompt,
See,
it's
I
most
disagree.
Americans.
I think the ability to recognize every opportunity that you can capitalize in front of you is far more important than just financial literacy. And that means every moment of your life, there is something you can capitalize on if you can recognize it. If you can capitalize on every opportunity, that would definitely give you the ability to succeed in life more than just knowing how a budget spreadsheet. Correct?
So
If you
I guess
recognize how this person you're talking to could actually give you a job, if you recognize that this is worth it, if you recognize, things of that nature.
Again, I would fall back more towards the prompt saying most Americans. I don't think most Americans are going to a bar and having a conversation with somebody that's going to offer them a job.
I didn't say most Americans are good at recognizing opportunities. I just said that I even think that something like this is more important than financial literacy.
For most Americans, I would disagree, because most Americans aren't coming across situations like this.
That's
I think
not true at all. Most Americans come across them every day. They just fail to recognize them. I think you would agree to that, right?
Do you have statistics for that?
No, this is my own personal idea. But
Sure.
I feel like it'd be somewhat hard to prove, because I can't really prove a negative here. But just think about every single person you interact with. If somehow you were able to talk to them a little bit more deeply. But again, it's not really my main reason why.
Sure. I think I'll go back to the previous point, which I think was particularly important, where it was costs of living is more, as you said, more important, where cost of housing and everything like that.
Choice set.
Yeah, choice set. I think there is a statistic that, like, currently 1/3 of Americans aged 18 to 34, which is a weird age set, currently live with their parents, and the majority of them agree they're doing it because it helps them out financially. And the remaining 2/3, 2/3 of them are saying that if they were focused more on financial security rather than behavioral independence, they would move back home, because they would be able to save, on average, across all of America, about $10,000 to $20,000 a year. It's the very minority, like 5 to 10% of people can't move homes due to abusive homes, or parents downsize their homes.
I mean, that says more about the economic condition of the average American than it does about their ability to succeed, doesn't it?
I think a financially literate American would see that if I can save $10,000 to $20,000 a year.
If this was 50 years ago, there would be it'd be a different answer, right? The truth is the economic condition in this country is not good. But
we're living today, not 50 years ago.
Sure, but you don't get to transpose it as if like somehow that's going to be a magically good economic decision. In reality, it's just their economic condition in general, because the economic condition in this country is degraded, is just not good. They can't really transpose them that way.
Like in a systemic thing, you can argue that the economy is not a good spot, but from what the statistics are saying,
I am.
what the statistics are saying, that with the system we live in today, young Americans can move back home. You know, two-thirds of them, more than two-thirds of them can move back home, and then they save $10,000 to $20,000 a year, and that's just housing.
Again,
if we look
can
at
scarcity make people focus on urgent needs even when they know the better long-term choice? As in,
scarcity
this is
would
kind of a
come
little bit of
from-
a tangential idea here, but like, if rent was due, do you think that might overpower someone's retirement planning?
Well, I'm unsure where scarcity would come from, in the sense that an individual would choose to
Scarcity
live at
is-
home rather than finding a place to
No,
rent.
this is a little bit of a tangential idea, but I don't think it's that relevant, the living at home thing, to be honest with you.
I think it is.
Sounds like a
'cause-
people don't budget idea, but budgeting is useful when you have enough money to allocate, not when you don't have enough money to actually afford rent.
So if moving home gives you that money to,
Budgeting is not
allocate
going to
for-
solve unstable income or unaffordable rent or medical bills or childcare costs or job loss, correct?
So the $10,000 to $20,000 that an average American would save living at home, does that not do anything?
Are they going to be able to
Are those
keep
are
their
those
job when they
resources-
move home? Where are you getting the statistic from?
It is.
Are they going to be able to keep their job? Like, how far away do they move? I'm pretty confused how we can just get this number out of thin air.
I've got. Let me dig her on up.
Also, I
here.
don't know if that it actually qualifies as a financial literacy move, right?
It's choices about your income and what you spend money on. I would say that's.
It sounds like general judgment to me, right? Which is broader than financial literacy.
I mean, with that case, I don't think I could argue anything as financial literacy.
Yes, you can. I already told you what you could with.
Name one thing.
Again, we're going to be looking at saving, retirement, portfolio decisions, borrowing.
But how
Budgeting?
can you claim saving as a financial choice when that's just like a rational thought for somebody to have?
It is
I think
a part of financial literacy. Saving is part of financial literacy within the definition of human capital.
If that's the case, then somebody living at home to save $10,000 to $20,000, how is that
Okay,
not
so
financial?
the decision to live at home is not part of the financial literacy, but the saving afterwards would be. Does that make sense?
So if an individual realizes that they can save $10,000 to $20,000 by living at home, is that not
For
a wise
instance,
financial
general
choice?
judgment. Okay, general judgment is
Yeah.
partially helped by financial literacy, but can it explain, most Americans falling behind? And it is broader than financial literacy, correct?
No, I would disagree.
Yes. You think general judgment is not broader than financial literacy? General judgment.
No, I guess more so the conflating the two, because
I'm not conflating them. I'm trying to demarcate them for you.
Well, is it just general knowledge for somebody to put money into an emergency savings account?
If you're doing that, it's savings. That wouldn't be general judgment.
And if you're choosing to live somewhere else to save more money, that's not saving money.
Is it because of unstable income or unaffordable rent, or is it because they really are just choosing to do this out of, saving? They're trying to do this because they want to be good at financial literacy.
I think one stat was that 64% of Americans that live 18 to 34-year-olds that live at home are doing it because of financial.
A stat is
choices.
not going to give you any inference. I wouldn't just go on further than whatever the stat's telling you, right? You kind of have to, when you get statistics, you kind of have to make sure that you're not just using the data set and you don't make inferences that are more than whatever they can claim, correct?
So the 64% that say they're doing it to save money for finances, I cannot claim that 64% of people are doing it for financial reasons.
Again, this is because the economic conditions are bad, correct? Not because they know financial literacy. This is downstream.
I guess I'm unsure then,
Correct.
like, what can exist as financial literacy consistently.
Yeah, I know. The problem here is that you can't make it so broad that all of a sudden every single decision you make is now financial literacy, correct?
I don't see why that's an issue.
Because then you've made the definition of financial literacy now something that's irrelevant, and it's not something that's up for debate.
How's it
You've made it
relevant?
every decision in the world.
Every decision related to money and how somebody can use money to their advantage or disadvantage.
Is addiction and despair something related to money? Even though they understand financial literacy, maybe addiction and despair causes them to make improper decisions?
Yeah, behavior still can play a role.
Okay. What about
finances
social
can-
capital?
Can play a role.
What about no? I mean, it's definitely not directly helped by financial
I mean, if
literacy,
you're
right?
like if somebody were to like network for the purpose of trying to expand their
That is
social
not-
capital because they
That is
realize
not
that.
directly financial literacy. That has nothing to do with saving, borrowing, or retirement.
So why would
Correct.
somebody want to network if it's not related?
So they can
to
get a better
finances?
job, and then downstream
want
they
a better
could save. Correct.
Okay, so the ultimate reason is so that they can save money. So the
No,
choice
that's not the
that
ultimate
drives
reason.
the social events or these networking things is the end goal is to save money. And if that doesn't count as a financially literate choice for something to do,
See, you have to be careful here. Okay, you can't just go further than whatever. If you you brought up human capital, correct?
Yeah.
Human capital based. So financial knowledge can be treated as an investment. People who acquire it can make better borrowing, saving, retirement, portfolio decisions, correct? Now,
that's
the
correct.
very article in which you're bringing up this phrase from makes clear that you cannot go further than this. They even write in their conclusion that we need to make sure that you isolate this in its scope. We can't do what you're saying. Are you aware of that?
I mean, I would still disagree.
It's not the primary cause that's happening from this. It's just saying something useful.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and jump in real quick. I'm not sure that I caught where Vegan referenced a source that you're pulling from, Searka. So I'd be very curious if you could drop what source he mentioned, or that you're quoting him, or quoting him as quoting. Well, yeah, just I kind of lost the thread there for a second. So if you could throw that into the Discord room, that would be super awesome. We're going to go ahead and go to our questions, our Q&A session from the judges. We do have a question for Searka, although it is sort of a meme question, another anonymous tipper, but so it's going to get in there, but yeah, it's a little off prompt. So I'm going to start out here with Vegan. First question from me, sir. In your opinion, or for this is something I'm going to give you the opportunity to articulate your thought one more time for us. I know you touched on this and you've kind of answered the question, but I'm not sure that I was able to fully understand your answer. So please explain to me and for us how it is that personal financial accountability is able to overcome systemic barriers and tragedies. Searka mentioned things like losing your job or market crashes, et cetera, et cetera. How is it that personal financial accountability is going to be able to beat those sort of systemic issues?
I would say that, and that's why at the very start, when the recession was brought up, where that happened 18 years ago, and to use that as the norm, or what most Americans are going through right now, doesn't fit the definition of most Americans. Like, that's not what's happening to most Americans. Unemployment rate is, I don't know where it is exactly, but like 5%. So 95% or most Americans have jobs and they're secure in whatever housing they have. Was there a second part to the question I'm forgetting?
Nope, that was it. Good enough stuff. We're going to go ahead and go to Average Debate Enjoyer. Tyler, please hit Searka with a question, sir.
Searka, I thought it was vegan.
I'm sorry. Please ask Vegan a question. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
I'm fired. I'll flog myself later, as you were.
All right, so Vegan, you made the argument that people could move back into their parents' house and save money, but this ignores several things like opportunity, education, employment, often things people move away from their homes from, and they usually take these risks in their early 20s and 30s because that's the time where they're going to be in poverty. They're going to be grinding, learning their skills, their experience. So would you not say your argument is unrealistic because the reasons people often move away from their parents' house are to grow long term?
I would disagree that it's a bad or unrealistic choice because, as the statistics show, 2/3 of Americans or more would be willing to live at home for long-term financial gain. a lot of the time they do it is so they can save up money to buy a home, or if they want to save money to do college and not need to take out loans for that schooling. It may delay their time that they get to schooling, but then they don't need to worry about debt with loans. I think the statistics speak for themselves in the fact that the majority of Americans would be willing to live at home because in the long run, they see that it would be beneficial for themselves in the regard of money they have, money they can spend, and overall outcome of life.
Right. And Jesus, your turn, sir. Question for vegan, please.
Sorry for that. I forgot the exact example that you guys were using, but vegan, you said that financial literacy isn't necessarily the main reason in all cases. So how can it be the reason if it's not in all cases?
Can you bring up the prompt again on your stream? You changed it back to the.
I sure did. I'm sorry, I screwed up. I'll fix it. But
all right. So a lack of financial literacy is the reason most Americans fall behind in life. So if somebody comes up and says, okay, so if this disabled person or this person that's in the bottom 5% of income in America aren't able to use financial literacy to climb their way out of, poverty or their situation, however negative it is, I would admit that yes, somebody being financially literate can't solve every single problem, but these are niche cases in some part, or the vast minority for the other parts. And so for most Americans, if we want to talk about, the poorest 80%, and we don't even need to do that because even rich Americans make really stupid choices. They come to financial ruin. There's the saying or equivalent saying across essentially every society in the world where the first generation builds wealth, the second one maintains it, and then the third one squanders it. It doesn't matter how wealthy a group is in terms of if they have wealth or not. If they're stupid, even if a wealthy person is stupid, they can squander their wealth. And if we're going to focus on the bottom 10 or 20% of Americans and only on income for that bottom 20%, I think that doesn't qualify under the definition of the debate where it's most Americans, because 20% is not most.
Okay. All right. So now we're actually going to send it over to Searka. Searka, I'm going to ask you your first question. First of all, I did get that reference, and I appreciate that. I will take a look at that later, and I will also put it into the room chat so all the other people can take a look at it. So I had a couple of questions for you, but I'm going to give you the easiest one, I think. Do you believe, and ironically, it's the same question that I asked Testes whenever they had this prompt. You were saying that a lack of financial literacy is not the main reason, or is not the reason most Americans fall behind in life. However, I would like to ask, do you believe that an increase in investment knowledge and financial literacy would benefit most Americans, at least?
You already said that. It's useful.
But it wouldn't make a meaningful impact?
Is it the primary cause? No. Is it useful? Yes.
Okay. So there is some benefit to it. Fair enough. Good stuff.
Yep.
Tyler, your question for Searka, please.
All right, Searka. So your argument is that financial literacy is income. And how did I write this? You argue that financial literacy isn't the factor, but your income is the major factor. You can know how to build yourself into a millionaire, essentially, but if you don't have certain things there, it doesn't mean shit, is what you're saying here.
No, I said choice set.
Like,
so that means people need income, they need stability, they need health.
Yes, yeah, you can have the knowledge in your head.
And they need access.
Hold on, this is just a clarification question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking questions. Go ahead. I'm sorry. What was your question now?
I'm asking just a quick clarification of his argument. I'm saying you could have the knowledge in your brain of how to become a millionaire, how to be the best investor in the world, And that doesn't mean shit if you don't have certain factors, one of the main one being income. That's your argument, yes?
No, I never said it doesn't mean shit.
Like, it doesn't... I'm being hyperbolic. I'm just making a
You're
summary.
putting words into the debater's mouth, Tyler. Please stop doing that. Use his actual words, or don't. You're trying to repeat his. You're trying to repeat his arguments, but you're misquoting his arguments. So please just ask your question.
It's not important at all. I'm saying it's not the major factor.
It is not the major one. It's
all right, go on.
The fifth one out of the five.
It's good. It just don't mean shit unless you have other things. That's your argument. So yes. So would you?
No, it still is a part of the regression.
I got the answer I need, man. Don't be pedantic. You would. So would you not consider financial literacy everything else but what you said? The I for opportunity, the ability to take a marketable idea, understand the business structure, design a business, and present that to borrowers or investors to secure that income. Aren't those all financially literate skills? And just because you aren't able to eye gold doesn't mean you have to reinvent the wheel. You could just
become... Those are not financial literacy skills.
Those are, okay, so being able to build a business,
being able to
understand...
Get someone to like you, and being a good client executive are different than knowing how to budget.
Being to like you. I said have a marketable idea, understand a business structure, design a business plan. Those are not marketable skills. Literacy skills, I'm sorry.
Do you think an entire business, the marketing structure, all of those ideas you just said are financial
I'm not answering
ideas?
your questions here. I'm asking you a question.
I'm answering it. What you just said is wrong.
That's not the answer. That's a question. I said, do you not consider financial literacy to be understanding what a marketable idea is, building a business structure, designing a business plan, and presenting it to an investor to get an investment? Do you not consider those skills specifically to be financial literacy?
That's not financial literacy.
That's all I'm asking.
All right, we got through that. Jesus. I'm going to need a lot of fucking whiskey tonight. Will you please ask Searka a question, sir?
Yeah. So, where do you draw the line as to what is included under financial literacy? I know you defined what financial literacy itself is, but what is the threshold that you use to determine this is financial literacy or this is not financial literacy?
Yeah, it's the ability to process economic information and make informed decisions about planning, saving, wealth accumulation, debt, and things like pensions. All those ideas.
Right. So that was the definition. What I'm asking is to clarify, if we have situation A and situation B, how do you determine that situation A falls under the category of financial literacy and option B? What is your,
so let's say you get a new job and you don't have a lot of pressure to spend money on healthcare. And let's say you live in an area that allows you to get that job. The opportunity is there for you to take because of stability. Let's say there's no recession or layoffs happening because of bad economic conditions. And then the very fifth thing here would be you can convert this into budgeting or planning for retirement. There you go.
All right. So I think that was all of the judge questions and then some. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and kick this back to the two debaters. We're going to go to you first, Vegan, for 3 minutes on the clock to give you the opportunity uninterrupted to give us your 3-minute closing, sir. Start the clock when you start to talk.
All right. I guess since we were so limited on our time to talk, which is the format of the debate, the other things that I was hoping to bring up were more general statistics about the average American, or most people. There was a study that shows that an average American loses $1,000. Well, in 2025, lost $1,000 due to lack of financial knowledge. They overpaid debt. They took out bad credit, stuff like that. So even for low-income earners, that extra $1,000 would be immensely helpful. The TIAA Institute for Personal Finance has this thing they call the three times rule, where people with low financial literacy are 3 times more likely to be financially fragile, more susceptible to emergencies, essentially ruining them. They have no plan for the future beyond that. 5 times more likely to have no savings at all, and 2 times as likely to say debt prevents them from managing other life priorities, primarily because they take bad debt. There was a FINRA study last year showing that 29% of Americans, only 29% of Americans could correctly explain how compounding works. And they, from that data, realized that that leads to high cost borrowing, like payday loans, like high, APR credit cards, stuff like that, buy now, pay later stuff. And that leads to another $1,200 per year in interest due to those. I was only able to touch on housing with, living at home. I think that a financially literate person would see living at home as a financially wise choice because it's focused on money. If we go to the other big costs for your average American, transportation is one of them. And there was a study showing that about 10% of people use public transportation when it was 30 to 40% of people are within means of using that public transportation. And they graded that public transportation as something where a bus shows up every 15 minutes. So reliable, consistent transportation that is far cheaper than buying a car. There was another that showed something like 54% of journeys traveling was less than 3 miles. And if people are traveling 3 miles to go to work, for example, or the grocery store, you don't need a car to go 3 miles. A car is very expensive, and it leads to financially ruinous decisions in the end. People can be car poor, especially lower income Americans. And so realizing that they don't need a car to drive from point A to point B, if the average distance for a drive is 3 miles, they can buy an e-bike or public transport or anything like that. My time's up, but I would have stepped a couple more steps, but my time is up. So,
all right. No worries. So we're going to go ahead and kick it over to you now, Searka. 3 minutes is on the clock for you, sir. Bring it home.
Okay, so does financial literacy matter? Or does it explain most Americans falling behind? The first is true. I think the second is not. Bad debt can hurt you. Bad spending can hurt you. Waiting too long to save can hurt you. And I think there is no need to pretend that financial choices are just like harmless, because they're not. Even the ideas that my opponent just brought up, things like compounding interest, are directly changed by how much income you make. If you make more income, if jobs were not stagnant, if we had a better economic condition, then people wouldn't take out compounding interest loans. There would be less risk. Now, transportation, he said reliable. I don't think he ever mentioned safe. A lot of people under pressure will change what is a good economic or financial literate decision to be one that is not about financial literacy and is one about safety. Many people don't care if the trains or the buses come every 15 minutes, but they do care if it's unsafe. And that would pressure them to make a different decision. These are all things that I just mentioned come before financial literacy. Now, this is what I mean by the evidence points to something wider. Families fall behind when paychecks swing, when rent rises, when jobs don't pay as much, when they disappear, when medical debt lands and they have to take out really bad payday loans, like you just mentioned. When child care eats the margin, which every single month is getting insanely higher. When the neighborhood has fewer openings, when a person has no cushion and they have no one to call. Take two people with the same financial literacy, like I mentioned, one has stable parents, the other one does not. They have the same financial literacy and they end up with different outcomes. Same literacy, different lives. That is the problem with this claim. It takes one tool and treats it as some sort of like master key, a skeleton key. Financial literacy can help someone avoid a payday loan. It can help someone understand compound interest. It can help someone see the danger in a bad mortgage or a credit card balance, but it cannot create income. It cannot lower rent. It cannot stop a layoff. It cannot cure illness. It cannot change when someone was born or where they were born. It cannot replace family wealth. It cannot replace social trust. And it cannot take place for a real opportunity structure. We should teach financial literacy. That is true. But we should not mistake this for the answer. People fall behind through a wider economic system, an ecosystem of all of these things I just mentioned. Choice set, bandwidth, opportunity, stability, resources, timing, again, geography, family, health, work, and shocks. And financial literacy helps and is useful, as we just learned a little bit, but it is not the primary reason.
All
And I'll end it there.
right. All right, so real quick, as a completely unrelated side note, Morally Superior Vegan, I need to let you know, sir, for some reason your microphone sounds like a fucking teletype from like 1942. So,
Sorry.
yeah, no, it's okay. It's just like it's distracting as fuck. I don't know if everybody else can hear it or it's just me, but yeah, I'm struggling to not bang my head on my desk. So, just to let you know. All right, everybody. So that is our third debate in the bag. Everybody, please be ready to vote. Let me get that link ready. I was distracted by the sound of his aliens, but now we have got it ready. Here you go. Boom. All right. So everybody, please click this link. Vote for who you think made the most compelling argument there. Was it Morally Superior Vegan defending the affirmative, or was it Searka defending the negative? I'm going to drop that same link into the Discord room so that everybody else can put it into theirs. Skadoosh. Also, I'm going to go ahead and drop it over there into my own YouTube and Kick. So everybody, please lock in your votes. Tell us where you landed. But to answer Bisky's question, what is the purpose of the judges? The purpose of the judges is multifaceted. First of all, yes, it is to ask them questions. Second, or to push the debaters to be better. Second of all, it is to render judgment on who made the best performance. But also it is to offer feedback and constructive criticism to debaters, things that maybe they missed or things they might be able to improve on, suggestions, etc., etc. So that's really what we're looking for from the judges. So with that said, I'm going to look over to them right now. Judges, I assume you guys are ready to render your verdicts. Tyler, where did you land on this one and why?
All right, so Searka got right out in front and seized the definition. He had some cited reasons. Do you mean this person's or this person's? He locked him into his dichotomy. It was never broken out of. Well, it wasn't attempted to be broken out of. At the time, it was basically just accepted. He got to define what financial literacy was, and it pretty much won the argument for him. And plus, he was prepped on some of the really early exchanges and just kind of won the first half of the debate. It was pretty much a sweep. So then Vegan comes into a pretty solid argument, I think, and says about people moving home. There's choices you can make that will improve your status financially, even if they maybe will hurt you in other ways, but you can move back home and save a ton of money and be more insulated. Nobody can prep for every doomsday. I think he gave that concession at one point. But you can make yourself financially isolated for these shocks. And I think that was a point brought up kind of early. So he gets into that argument, but Searka hit him back with a good counter argument, saying, like, essentially, like, how far are you moving? When are you keeping your job? He moved on from that point, so I made it into my question, but I think Searka, like, rebutted his first good argument very well with that. And then toward the end of the debate, it got a little bit weaker, but then Vegan didn't seize on the opportunity. Searka said that 65% of people are living paycheck to paycheck because the economy is bad. And it's not anything to do with financial literacy. And Vegan could have seized on that opportunity. Like, I've heard people make that argument, and I can make it myself. There's a lot of good arguments buried in. Like, this has been going on for 15 years, people living paycheck to paycheck. The economy's been bad for 15 years, but we can see that since the 70s, we're spending less disposable income out of our pockets for almost every single good. So, and people are like spending 3 times as much on entertainment and going out to eat and shit like that. Like, he could have made all those arguments, but he didn't. Like, there was a weakness, a hole there probably to pounce on, and he didn't. So, like, I gave this to Searka. I'm having a hard time deciding 8-2 or 7-3 for Searka's. I'm gonna go with 2-8 for Searka's favor.
2-8 to Searka from Tyler. All right, Lutch, now it's your turn, sir. Where'd you come down on this debate and why, sir?
I thought this was actually an interesting one. I think it came down to the prompt itself, because if it was something along the lines of financial literacy is a huge issue or a primary issue or something like that, then I think vegan would have taken it, because I don't really know how you could argue against that. But given the fact that Circa honed in early on the fact that the prompt was indeed the reason, the primary reason, in terms of just defining terms, framing the debate, and driving the discussion. There was a lot of times when I felt like vegan, you potentially were. I mean, I don't know what's in your guys' heads, but it felt like Circa maybe was like, "Ooh, I don't want to argue on these grounds, so I want to talk about something else." And every time he did that, you kind of just went along with it, and so I gave him points for driving the conversation. And then just in general, I think Circa came in with a better understanding of what the opposing argument would be. So I went with 3-7 for Circa.
All right, 3-7 for Searka. So chat, I do want you guys to click that link. I'm going to drop it one more time, but ultimately this is just for show. Just like here in the United States, your votes are only for performative purposes. The win here is going to go to Searka. But lock it in. I'm going to give it about another 3, 2, 1, and let's see where we landed. Boom. Show results, and ooh, 10-9 tie. Oh wait, we got one last minute vote in there for vegan. It's y'all are still locking them in. I'm calling it a tie because that's where it was whenever I said it, and it's going back and forth. So we're gonna call that